Chapter 4150. Even though she was a little confused from the fever, He Jing still knew that Yi Qian had been taking care of her. Su Wen, who seemed to have sensed something, looked over. He Jing made a soft shoo sound, indicating for Su Wen to be quiet and not wake Yi Qian up. Yi Qian had always been very alert. Even the slightest movement could wake her up. As the team leader, she was even more tired than the other students. She hadn't rested at all and had to come to the hospital to take care of He Jing. The dark circles under her eyelids made He Jing's heart ache. Su Wen nodded and got up. She mouthed, "I'll go get the doctor. Lie down." She tiptoed out of the room. Yi Qian, who hadn't woken up, continued to sleep. He only woke up when the doctor pushed open the door and came in. Seeing the doctor come in, Yi Qian immediately got up from the bed. He saw that He Jing's qi and blood were a little rosy, and even her eyes were a lot clearer. He knew that she was much better now. After all, she had stayed in medical school before, so she more or less knew a little. Su Wen saw that she had woken Yi Qian up. She leaned over and whispered, "Did you sleep well?" "I slept well. I'm energetic." Yi Qian also whispered in order not to disturb the doctor. The doctor listened to He Jing's heart and lungs, then smiled and said, "It's good to be young. After a few drips and a good night's sleep, your condition will improve greatly. We'll continue the drips this afternoon. Stay in the hospital for 3 days. We'll determine if you can be discharged based on your condition." As he spoke, he wrote on the medical record book with a pen. When He Jing heard that she had to stay in the hospital for 3 days, she immediately calculated in her mind. 4, 5, 6, 7. Luckily, it didn't affect her normal classes. The doctor told her a few things to take note of and left with the nurse. Su Wen closed the door and poured a glass of water for He Jing and Yi Qian. She said, "What do you want to eat? I'll go downstairs and buy it. You can only eat something light. Plain porridge will do." These words were directed at He Jing. She said to Yi Qian, "Do you want something spicy? Powder?" "I'll eat porridge too. I want to eat noodles." "She'll be hungry," Yi Qian said with a smile. The noodles were nowhere to be seen. He Jing was already hungry. The two of them stayed in the hospital for 2 days. Su Wen was so relaxed that she didn't want to go back to the military academy. Commander-in-Chief Xia called Yi Qian several times, but his phone was always turned off. Only when he contacted the faculty did he find out that Yi Qian had gone to the hospital to take care of a sick student. After hanging up the phone, Major General Yang, who was also in the office, smiled and said, "It doesn't matter if they don't contact each other." After Yuan returns and reports to the military headquarters, the second thing he will do is fly straight to the University of Science and Technology of China to look for Yi Qian. Although Major General Yang didn't point out the relationship between the two young people, he saw it clearly. There was no one he liked more than this pair. A strong team, chasing each other. Not only did their relationship not cause them to regress, but they also helped each other to improve and reach the peak together. Major General Yang felt that if he tried to stop this kind of relationship, he would become an unforgivable sinner. It was already 1:30 p.m. on the 5th. Ace, who had been away for nearly a year and a half, was about to arrive at the military headquarters. Xia Jinyuan, who arrived in Beijing at 11 o'clock a.m. on the 5th, got off the plane and stood in this familiar land that he loved deeply. Even someone as calm as him couldn't help but feel a little emotional. Hundreds of days and nights, thousands of hours had passed. After nearly a year and a half, he was finally back. The familiar buildings, the familiar people, the familiar vehicles, the familiar environment, even the blue sky was so familiar. He once again came back alive to feel the familiarity of everything in the country. Chapter 4151. It was great to be alive. There was hope, challenge, future, sunshine, wind and rain. Only by being alive could one feel everything. And he, once again, came back alive. It was great. Outside the airport, The two guards checked the time from time to time and glanced around, in case they missed the important person they were going to pick up today. They didn't know who the important person was or what he was doing. They only knew that they had to pick him up and bring him back to the military immediately. Xia Jinyuan walked out of the exit and went straight to the parking lot. He knew that two guards were coming to pick him up, and he also knew their license plate number. He had called back in China before the transfer, so he knew in advance. The guards couldn't find Xia Jinyuan, who was wearing casual clothes and had no contact information, so the best way was to stand at the agreed location and wait patiently. Soon, they saw a man in an ordinary white shirt and black trousers appear in their line of sight. Even though the man was still standing on the stairs, his familiar temperament couldn't be hidden by his casual clothes. He was an important person they were going to pick up. He was a very young soldier, not even 30 years old. Xia Jinyuan, who came down the stairs, looked up slightly and saw the two guards who were coming to pick him up. They looked at each other and confirmed each other's identities. At 1:45, Xia Jinyuan stood in front of the military headquarters building. The bright red national flag fluttered in the wind in front of him, and a row of golden words shone dazzlingly in the sun. Looking at the national flag and the slogan, Xia Jinyuan was suddenly excited. He took a deep breath and suppressed the tears in his eyes. He strode into the military headquarters building with his head held high, then took the elevator to the corresponding floor. Entering the floor required fingerprint and facial verification, and after passing, the guards with guns saluted and let him pass. Walking through the quiet and solemn corridor, Xia Jinyuan came to the door of an office. He raised his hand and gently knocked. When he retracted his hand, he vaguely heard the sound of a chair being overturned. His eyes narrowed and he pressed the door lock. When he pushed the door open and entered, he saw his father standing behind a long and wide desk with two bright red flags of the same color. It seemed that he wanted to come and greet him personally. As for the chair being overturned, Major General Yang had already walked over. He was a little excited and raised his hand to pat Xia Jinyuan on the shoulder. He couldn't hide his joy and said, "Good, good, good. Well done." Commander-in-Chief Xia also had a smile on his face. He sat back in the chair that he had overturned when he was not paying attention just now. There was a rare gentleness in his cold eyes as he looked at his only son who had returned safely. Sixth brother was back. She came back safely. Commander-in-Chief Xia sat back in his chair and put his slightly trembling hands under the desk to avoid being seen by the other two. Old Yang was fine, but the bastard at home would probably argue with him again. Xia Jinyuan saluted to the Commander-in-Chief and Major General Yang. He stood as straight as a spear and made a simple verbal report. He picked out all the important points, including the addition of the Russian signal flag troop. He picked out the important points and finished the report. In the end, he said, the written report still needs to be calmed down before it can be completed. Please give me 5 days to complete the written report, Chief. Major General Yang raised his eyebrows and made brief eye contact with Commander-in-Chief Xia. See, he guessed right. Rest? He would rest. But he would definitely not rest in the capital. He was in a hurry to find Yi Qian. Chapter 41-52. Commander-in-Chief Xia glanced at Xia Jinyuan, who was in a hurry to leave and didn't want to spend another minute with his father. He sipped his tea unhurriedly. Oh, the cup was empty. He needed to refill it. Lieutenant Colonel Xia didn't even need his father's instructions. He quickly picked up the cup and refilled the Commander-in-Chief's cup. He then poured a cup of tea for Major General Yang and said with a smile, "The leaders won't be so stingy as to not give me 5 days off. I really need to calm down. Otherwise, I'm afraid that I'll suffer from post-war PTSD and affect my future development. The two leaders probably can't bear to see me fall ill and not be able to carry out missions in the future." Major General Yang sipped his tea and asked calmly, "You only want 5 days off? 15 days is fine." It depends on how the leaders arrange it for me. Who was Xia Jinyuan? Once he heard that there was a chance and that he could take more time off, he had to fight for it. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who was sipping his tea, finally spoke. I'll give you 10 days off. Arrange it well. You have to go to your home. You can make other arrangements yourself. Yes, sir. Xia Jinyuan quickly saluted and left the military headquarters in a hurry. When he reached the door, he turned his head and smiled at the Commander-in-Chief. Commander-in-Chief, the water is hot. Don't shake it. After that, he opened the door and left. Xia Jinyuan had stayed in the military headquarters for an hour, including the time he spent giving his verbal report. He was already thinking about the University of Science and Technology of China and was just waiting for them to go over. Commander-in-Chief Xia put down his cup and jokingly scolded, "This kid is asking for a beating." After that, he and Major General Yang laughed together. Wasn't he asking for a beating? They wouldn't beat him up, but someone else would. They just had to wait for the good news. After returning to the old mansion, Xia Jinyuan planned to spend the night with Old Master Xia and Old Madame Yang. Who would have thought that, after returning home for an hour, he would be chased out of the house like a ball and arranged for a driver to send him directly to the airport. Old Madame Yang stood outside the car and said to her favorite grandson with a smile, "Xiao Yi will graduate in a year. Whether he can get married after graduation depends on how capable he is." She had been looking forward to finding her future granddaughter-in-law. There was no point in staying at home. On his way to the airport, Xia Jinyuan first contacted Yi Qian, whose phone was turned off. Then he called the school to ask around and learned that his beloved girl was accompanying a sick comrade in the hospital. When he got off the plane at 1 o'clock in the morning, after he got off the plane, he directly rushed to the hospital. He could finally meet the girl that he had missed day and night. It was already 2 o'clock when they arrived at the hospital. Xia Jinyuan showed his identification card and found out the floor and room number of He Jing's room. He almost ran to the elevator. And 2. Even. Ng. Almost there, almost there, almost there. He stared at the changing numbers on the elevator. Yi Qian, who was sleeping on the bed, turned over several times and got up from the bed to take a walk outside. He probably slept too much during the day and couldn't sleep at night. The elevator door opened. The ward door opened. One of them strode towards the ward, while the other carefully closed the door and prepared to leave. Xia Jinyuan, who was standing at the front of the corridor, stopped in his tracks. He had already seen the person he had been thinking about day and night. Yi Qian, who was closing the door, paused. She felt a gaze like glue fall on her. The gaze was so affectionate and familiar. She slowly turned around until the most familiar figure appeared in front of her eyes. At that moment, time stood still. Chapter 41-53. The hospital corridor at night was very, very quiet. It was so quiet that they could hear each other's breathing even though they were about 10 meters apart. They could feel their hearts skip a beat the moment their eyes met. There was some pain, some soreness, some bitterness, and some feelings that couldn't be expressed in words. In the quiet space, they looked at each other for a long time. Their gazes seemed to have traveled through countless years and reincarnations. The two of them seemed to have walked through the raging sandstorm of the Gobi Desert and crawled through the endless yellow sand. Just as they were exhausted, they saw the oasis and the two of them standing at the other end of the oasis. Yi Qian felt that her vision was a little blurry. She even wondered if she was dreaming. Otherwise, why would she see Captain Xia the moment she woke up because she couldn't sleep? She blinked gently. Her blurry vision cleared a little. She saw that the tall figure was still there and hadn't disappeared. She blinked again. He was still there. It wasn't a dream. Her eyes weren't playing tricks on her. Her lover, who she had been waiting for day and night, was finally back. They were about 10 meters apart. Xia Jinyuan couldn't clearly see Yi Qian's blinking motion, but he could feel that her hand was still on the door lock. The motionless Yi Qian couldn't believe what she was seeing. She couldn't believe that she would come back. Yi Qian believed it this time. She could clearly see that the figure standing in front of her was her Captain Xia, the man she loved deeply. Time seemed to have stopped. Yi Qian, whose lips were slightly curved, saw the man standing at the other end of the oasis walk towards her. The man mouthed to her, "Don't move. Don't move, my lover. I'm back. I'm back for you. Don't move. Just stand there. I'll definitely come back alive to find you. How could I break my promise to you? You're right there. I've walked through thousands of mountains and crossed thousands of rivers. I'll definitely return to your side safely. Because you're right there." Yi Qian didn't move. She stood at the door of the ward and waited for her lover to walk towards her step by step. His footsteps were steady and his gaze was firm. He said that he would definitely come back. He would definitely come back to her side. She believed him so deeply and unwaveringly. He had never broken a promise. He would definitely come back to her side. Look, he's back. Her captain, her comrade, her lover. He's back. 10 meters. 5 meters. 3 meters. His breathing became clearer and clearer. She could even hear his strong heartbeat. 3 meters. 2 meters. 1 meter. She had already been enveloped by his refreshing scent from head to toe. Such a familiar aura, such a familiar embrace, such a warm chest. She could hear him whisper. She could hear his heart. Xia Jinyuan hugged Yi Jian tightly. His strength was a little tight. The space between the two of them was compressed to the point where it could not be compressed anymore. Their bodies were so close together that even their heartbeats seemed to be synchronized. She closed her eyes and gently came back. Her arms were tightly wrapped around his strong waist. She hugged him so tightly that it was as if she wanted to melt into his bones. She hugged him as tightly as he hugged her. "Thank goodness you're finally here. Thank goodness you're back." Chapter 41-54. Yi Jian didn't say much. He just said, "I've been waiting for you." Xia Jinyuan was a man of steel. Even when he was stabbed in the chest a few months ago, he didn't cry out in pain or shed a single tear. But now, his heart was in pain and his eyes were filled with tears. Just 5 words, but they were filled with too much helplessness and worry. Every word weighed 1,000 pounds, and every word shed tears of blood. The girl he loved so much had been waiting for him to come back. She had been waiting and waiting. Fortunately, he hadn't let her down and had finally come back. She rubbed her cheek gently against his chest, as if she was still trying to confirm if it was real and if she was dreaming. That's great, that's great. Her lover was back. He kissed the top of Yi Qian's head tenderly and deeply. The pain in his heart melted into the kiss and lingered there for a long time. Yi Qian knew that he was kissing the top of her head, but she didn't stop him. The smile on her lips deepened, became softer, and more satisfied. "I'm sorry to have kept you waiting." Xia Jinyuan hugged his lover, who had obviously lost a lot of weight. The pain in his heart didn't dissipate at all. Instead, it became a wrenching pain. With tears in his eyes, he said in a low voice, "I'm sorry to have made you worry." Yi Qian, who was buried in his arms, immediately shook her head and replied, "I didn't wait long. I was just a little worried about you. Now that you're back, I'm very happy. There's no smell of blood on you. There's a faint smell of soap on you. You're not injured. You even took a shower before coming to find me. Captain Xia, you didn't go back on your word, so you don't have to feel sorry. Waiting wasn't scary because one would wait for their lover to come back. What kind of waiting was scary? Waiting for a lover who would never return, that kind of waiting was truly terrifying, truly despairing. Now that he was back, there was nothing to be sorry about because she knew where he went and why he left his country. It was his responsibility and hers. Xia Jinyuan, whose eyes were still filled with tears, smiled. The girl he loved so deeply always understood him and supported him so much. His life was complete with her. "Wait for me to come back. I will definitely come back. When I wait for you to come back one day, you will definitely come back. This is our promise, a promise to grow old together. Yi Qian nodded vigorously. That's why we have to remember our promise and wait for each other to come back alive. He didn't want to be too extravagant. He just wanted to be able to come back alive from every mission. That way, even if he missed her so much, he still had something to look forward to. Xia Jinyuan raised his head and forced back the tears in his eyes. He turned his head and glanced at the ward with the lights off. He lowered his head and kissed the top of Yi Qian's head. He asked softly, "Do you want to sleep? Do you want to take a walk outside?" There were a few scrutinizing gazes coming from the nurses' station. Even with their backs facing each other, they could feel the probing gazes. Although Yi Qian wasn't wearing his military uniform and was only wearing a pair of shorts and a fitness shirt, the nurses knew that there were 3 students from the military academy staying in this ward. Although not many people saw them at night, they still had to be careful. Yi Qian, who was still a little reluctant to let go, said softly, "Yes, yes. Just a little longer." They hadn't seen each other for too long. She missed him so much that she just wanted to hug him properly. It was rare for her to act coquettishly, so Xia Jinyuan naturally went along with her. Even if the 3 nurses on duty at the nurses' station stood up to watch, he was unmoved. Let them watch. It was normal for a boyfriend to hug his girlfriend. Chapter 4155. It was rare for Yi Qian to act coquettishly and want to hug Xia Jinyuan a little longer. Half asleep, Su-wen grabbed her hair and got up. Her eyes were still half closed as she looked down to find her slippers. She yawned and went to the bathroom. After taking 2 steps, she felt that something was wrong, so she turned her head and looked at the opposite bed. Then she took another 2 steps and realized that Yi Qian, who was sleeping on the opposite bed, was not on the bed. Her brain suddenly woke up. She thought that Yi Jian had also climbed out of bed to go to the bathroom. She mumbled something under her breath and walked towards the private bathroom behind the ward door with her slippers. However, she looked through the glass of the ward door. Her half-closed eyes widened little by little and finally became round. She. What did she see? She wasn't seeing things, right? She blinked hard and rubbed her eyes with both hands. Her eyes were round and wide. She wasn't seeing things. She really wasn't seeing things. At this moment, Su-wen reacted very quickly. She rushed to He Jing's side and woke her up. Jing, wake up! Wake up! Something big happened! Something big happened! He Jing was sleeping soundly when she was suddenly woken up by Su-wen. She was still asking when something big happened. Her habitual reaction was to get up from the bed. Bang! She got up quickly and violently, and Su-wen was very close to her. Their heads collided violently. Su-wen hit her forehead. It hurt so much that she quickly clenched her fist and stuffed it into her mouth to stop herself from screaming in pain. He Jing's forehead hurt so much that she couldn't open her eyes. She wanted to say something, but Su-wen had already covered her mouth. Don't say anything. Don't scream in pain. Bear with it. Something big happened outside. Su-wen, who was in so much pain that tears were coming out of her eyes, rubbed her forehead hard. Something big happened outside. Ouch. It really hurt. It hurt so much that she had to bite her tongue to speak. He Jing pried Su-wen's hand away from her mouth. What's so big that you didn't sleep in the middle of the night and came here to scare people? Don't you know that the hospital is quite scary? My great aunt, Shu, lower your voice, lower your voice. Su-wen pointed outside and said in a voice as soft as a mosquito, "There's a man outside and he's holding little Jane Eyre in his arms. Little Jane Eyre is hugging the waist of a man who is at least 15 centimeters taller than her. Her head is buried in the man's chest. I'm willing to bet that it's Jane Eyre's mysterious boyfriend. Otherwise, given how little Jane Eyre doesn't like interacting with male students and isn't even used to hugging us, how could she possibly jump into a man's arms? I'm sure that the man outside is Jane Eyre's boyfriend. No way, coming to the hospital in the middle of the night for a date? Jing couldn't believe it, and her curiosity was piqued. They no longer sat on the bed. Instead, they quickly got off the bed. Then, the two of them slowly and quietly moved to a position where they could see the outside. Jing sucked in a breath of cold air. Suwon didn't see wrongly. It was really so. Other than her boyfriend, she wouldn't think twice. Right, her boyfriend is here. Ah, he kissed her. Suwon not only watched but also commented. She held Jing's hand tightly and said excitedly, "Do you think he'll kiss her? Kiss her. She was so excited that it was as if she was the one doing it. Jing glanced at her. Can't this girl be a little more reserved? Can't she just bury her feelings in her heart and not say them out loud? Chapter 4156. Just like her, she also wanted to see him kiss her on the lips, but if she didn't say anything, who would know? Before they could kiss, their gazes were too intense. Xia Jinyuan was the first to notice. When he lowered his head to kiss Yi Qian's forehead, he leaned over to her ear and couldn't help but lightly peck her pink earlobe. He chuckled softly and said, "Your two roommates have woken up and are looking at us right now. Don't we need to say hi to them? They just woke up. Let's go in and say hi before we go down for a walk. They might not come back if they went down for a walk." They hadn't seen each other for too long, and there were too many things they wanted to say. They couldn't sleep tonight. As they chatted, they would see if there was anything else they could do. Yi Qian didn't blush unnaturally like before when she was discovered. This time, the joy of reuniting after a long separation took over. Her emotions overrode her rationality. Even though she was a little embarrassed, she naturally held Xia Jinyuan's hand and walked with him to the ward. The two roommates in the ward relied on their nimble movements and rushed back to their own beds at the speed of light the moment the two of them let go of their tight embrace. At the same time, they lifted their hands and legs and pretended to sleep on their side. Yi Qian came in and turned on the lights. She saw the two of them rushing back to their beds as if they were acting. No matter how much noise they made, they wouldn't wake up. She rubbed her forehead and said to her boyfriend, Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who came in with her, "They usually like to put on an act. Right now, we need their acting skills to explode, so they're both pretending to be asleep." Xia Jinyuan laughed. He knew that his girl got along well with all the students in school. She was more compatible with them than her middle and high school classmate. Perhaps they were like-minded. Yi Qian was like a fish in water after entering the military academy. No student had ever stood up to criticize her. Jingji knew that they had been discovered secretly watching, so there was no need to pretend to be asleep. She opened her eyes, sat up, and openly looked at Xia Jinyuan. Yi Qian, who was able to woo the most popular person in the school and was the crush of countless male students, must have something extraordinary about him. Therefore, she needed to take a good look at him. Jing smiled and said, "Hello, I'm Jane Eyre's roommate and comrade-in-arms, Jing. Seeing you is better than hearing about you 100 times. Sorry for the disrespect." He looked handsome enough, and had the aura of a soldier. Just this appearance, tsk, it was top-notch. Standing next to their little Jane Eyre, they were a perfect match. Just by looking at them, they looked like a perfect match. On the other side, Suwon, who could no longer pretend to be asleep, also got up. This time, he was reserved. He nodded slightly and said graciously, "Hello, I'm Jane Eyre's roommate and comrade, Suwon. Nice to meet you." Xia Jinyuan said gracefully, "Hello, I'm Jane Eyre's boyfriend and comrade, Xia Jinyuan. Nice to meet you." She even knew how to introduce herself in such a considerate manner. Suwon winked at Yi Qian, indicating that he had a good first impression of him. Not to mention how handsome he was, their little Jane Eyre was a first-class beauty. She had to find a first-class handsome guy. The most important thing was his aura. This aura, TSK, 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 he was 100 times better than all the male students in school who had a crush on little Yi Qian. No, 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 it should be said that even if they lived for a few hundred years, they might not have the aura of this comrade Xia. Elegant, noble, and military. Good Lord, his aura was already above everyone else. Chapter 41-57. Both of them were smart girls. They knew that if the other party came to the hospital in the middle of the night to look for Yi Qian, it definitely wasn't just for a look. Therefore, after introducing themselves, He Jing and Su Wen exchanged glances tacitly. Su Wen, who was always generous and polite, said, "Are you guys going out for a walk? Go on, go on. The ward is small and not suitable for chatting. We're both sleepy and can't chat with you. Sorry, we can only chase you out." Yi Qian knew that the two of them were trying to ease the awkwardness, but they were different. They trained and studied together, and their relationship was extraordinary. Moreover, since they brought Captain Xia here, she didn't want to hide it from them anymore. She smiled and said, "My boyfriend and I haven't seen each other for a long time. I'm afraid we have endless things to talk about. Wenzi, thank you for taking care of Su Wen during the day." Oh wow, wow, wow. She was usually so shy that she would blush at the slightest joke, but now she dared to spend the night with her boyfriend. Also, she didn't even plan to return to the ward during the day. Not only were Su Wen and He Jing surprised, but even Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who was her boyfriend, was also very surprised. He had planned to chat with the two female students for a while before suggesting that he and Yi Qian go out for a walk. It might take a long time, so they didn't plan to come back. Who knew that the shy little fox would take the initiative to suggest it? Under the teasing gazes of the two roommates, Yi Qian raised her eyebrows with an expression that said, "I'm not shy." She held Xia Jinyuan's hand tightly and prepared to leave the ward. This was her boyfriend. It wasn't like he couldn't be seen in public. Ahem, it was a little shameful, but it was night time and they couldn't be seen in public. Xia Jinyuan glanced at the only empty bed. He saw the bed number clearly and found the corresponding cabinet. He said softly, "Bring the student uniform." Xia Jinyuan was tall, so he couldn't help but lower his head slightly when talking to Yi Qian. From He Jing and Su Wen's point of view, they could clearly see the adoration on Yi Qian's face. The smiles in their eyes deepened. They had dated before, so they could clearly feel the love this tall and handsome man had for Yi Qian. It was a very, very deep love. Even when he was introducing himself, his gaze was deeply fixed on Yi Qian, and then out of politeness, he looked at them before immediately retracting his gaze back to Yi Qian. He loved Yi Qian very much, and he only had eyes for Yi Qian. When He Jing and Su Wen saw Xia Jinyuan going into the closet to take out a military jacket, they were already grinning from ear to ear. "That's great, that's really great." There were still remnants of sweetness in every ward they stayed in. "Our little Jane Eyre will be very happy," Su Wen said softly as she looked at the closed ward door. He Jing nodded. "Yes, she will definitely be very happy. The outstanding Yi Qian deserves to be doted on by an outstanding man." "Exactly. Do you think they'll directly check into a hotel next?" He Jing thought for a moment and replied, "They'll definitely choose a star-rated hotel. Huatian Hotel will be their first choice. They definitely won't choose a small hotel. Their temperament doesn't seem like something an ordinary family can raise." She naively thought that Su Wen was asking about where they were staying. Su Wen glanced at her and said slowly, "I'm asking if they'll check into a hotel and sleep together." After a while, He Jing picked up her pillow and threw it at Su Wen's bed. "What nonsense are you thinking about all day long? Sleep." Chapter 41-58. In the ward, Su Wen hugged the white quilt and laughed. "Ayaya, our family's Jingjing is so pure. With one look, I can tell that she has never done anything bad. Should we choose a hotel or a hotel? Ha, I'm laughing so hard that I can't breathe." It was obvious that she was also inexperienced. She was so pure. After all, they had been dating for a year. Didn't they have any substantial breakthroughs in their relationship? They were adult men and women, and they were lovers. It wasn't easy for them to meet each other. When dry wood met fire, the fire would burn fiercely. Unexpectedly, Jing was still so pure. No wonder. She would walk out of the shadow of her first love in a few months after breaking up. There was no substantial relationship, and there were no traces of her first love in her body. If they really broke up, she would at most be sad. One had to know that humans were forgetful. Jing's face turned red from Su Wen's laughter. She grabbed the quilt and rushed to the door to turn off the lights. She said angrily, "Don't think too much. Nothing will happen between Jane Eyre and her boyfriend." Little Jane Eyre's self-control has always been strong. She herself is very outstanding, so the boyfriend she found must not be an ordinary person. He must be exceptionally outstanding in all aspects, even stronger than little Jane Eyre herself, which is why she likes him. Didn't you notice how good Jane Eyre's boyfriend is to her? Since he knows that we are still students, he will call us out for a chat when we are dating. How could he do anything bad? Anyway, based on my understanding of Jane Eyre, even if the two of them meet again after a long time, they won't do anything bad. She still wants to be an outstanding student. She has a clear goal. She won't regret it for the rest of her life because of a moment of greed. Jing lay on the bed and said seriously. If Su Wen hadn't mentioned it, she really wouldn't have thought about it. Although she said so, she couldn't help but feel worried when she mentioned it. You don't be so serious. It's normal for something to happen. The hotel provides birth control product. Nothing will happen. Su Wen came from a big city and was more open-minded than Jing. She didn't support or oppose it. Because it was a private matter between Yi Qian and her boyfriend, no matter how close the three of them were, there were some things that had to be avoided. Knowing that Jing was worried, Su Wen comforted her again. You've said it yourself. Yi Qian is outstanding, so her boyfriend must be outstanding as well. When two outstanding people get together, they'll know what's important. For us, we should just eat carrots and worry less. It's better to just sleep. Su Wen stretched herself, yawned, and squeezed out a drop of tears. She hugged the quilt and closed her eyes to sleep comfortably. Sleep, sleep. These days are so comfortable. I don't have to do morning exercises in the morning, and I don't have to take attendance at night. I can arrange my own time. Oh, it's more comfortable than living at home. Jing, how about this? Why don't you stay for a few more days and let me relax? What he got in return was a simple and domineering word from Jing, scram. Okay, I'm going to sleep. Su Wen smiled and went to sleep contentedly. As for what would happen between Yi Qian and her boyfriend, it didn't matter. As long as they paid attention to contraception, it would be fine. With their intelligence, it was impossible for them to not think of contraception. However, it was hard to say. If they had sex a few times, they would use contraception during foreplay. If she didn't tell Jing that if it was their first time, they wouldn't think of contraception. Chapter 41:59. This was purely a personal matter. No matter how close a friend was, she had to know her limit. With Jing's intelligence, she would definitely be able to understand her reminder. Jing naturally understood Su Wen's reminder. Although it seemed like she was the one who took care of Su Wen more, it was actually Su Wen who gave her advice on the ways of the world. Jing, who was lying in bed, thought about it. She felt that Su Wen was right. This was a personal matter. She shouldn't be telling her what to do. Thus, Jing, who understood, closed her eyes and fell asleep. Yi Qian, who was walking out of the hospital, elbowed the man who was laughing all the way. Her face was slightly red. She gritted her teeth and said, "Captain Xia, if you still want to laugh, I'll go back upstairs immediately. I won't accompany you anymore." Laugh, laugh, laugh. What was so funny? She didn't say anything wrong. She just said that she wouldn't be going back to accompany him tonight. She would even be late in the day. However, she didn't know how he would interpret her words. In any case, he must have completely twisted her words. Otherwise, how could he laugh for so long? Why did Xia Jinyuan keep laughing? It was just as Yi Qian had guessed. He had completely twisted the meaning of her words into an adult's meaning. Once again holding the hand she had just flung away, Lieutenant Colonel Xia smiled mischievously. All right, I won't laugh anymore. I won't laugh anymore. He coaxed her. His voice was low and sweet. I just didn't expect that you, who have always been shy, would suddenly be so bold. You directly said that we would get a room tonight. He Jing probably didn't think too much. As for Su Wen, she definitely thought too much. Otherwise, she would have reminded you to be careful when we left. Yi Qian, who also didn't think too much, glared at him. What's wrong with reminding me to be careful? After saying that, he met Xia Jinyuan's mischievous expression. Then, Yi Qian realized in hindsight. He understood. This guy. Yi Qian, who understood, blushed even more. He couldn't even look at her properly. I didn't even say anything. She just likes to overthink things. Holding her hand tightly, Lieutenant Colonel Xia's smile deepened. No. It's normal for her to think that way. You even asked me to get a room. Impressive, little fox. I haven't talked to you for more than a year and you've become so bold. You even dare to get a room with me. He lowered his head and moved his thin lips close to Yi Qian's ear. Yes. What do you want to do with me when you get a room? His low voice became softer and softer, like sweet cotton candy and mellow wine, enveloping her bit by bit. The sweet and mellow taste added an indescribable ambiguity to the quiet night of the early morning. At this moment, Yi Qian realized that her words had led Yi Qian to the wrong place. Hot. She only felt a little hot now. Move away. Don't come so close. It's hot. She even pretended to be calm as she reached out to try and push away the man whose masculine scent was like a source of heat in her ear. Xia Jinyuan didn't ask her to push him away, nor did he use much force to push her away. At this moment, her shy expression made Lieutenant Colonel Xia, who only wanted to tease her, feel a little thirsty. She said that she was hot, so he was hot too. When they were in Melbourne, Luke said that he wanted to find a woman every day. He was even more naughty when they went to the bar. There was a time when he booked a private room. Lieutenant Colonel Xia went out for a smoke and came back to take a look. Good Lord, he was already doing it on the sofa. Later, when he asked Luke why he liked one-night stands, he said that it could relieve stress. Although he didn't agree with this method of relieving stress, he didn't criticize it. He also didn't think that he would be affected. Now, he realized that it wasn't that he wasn't affected, but that this effect came too late. Chapter 4160. Lieutenant Colonel Xia's eyes darkened as he reached out and gently rubbed Yi Jian's red earlobes. The soft and tender feeling came from his fingertips and instantly turned into an electric current that sizzled all the way to his heart. His willpower was like a peeling wall, falling off piece by piece, layer by layer. In the end, his primal urges were like a volcano that had been hidden deep under the sea, erupting in an instant. The boiling hot magma burned his calm heart and turned it into boiling water. It rolled and boiled, causing the muscles in his arms to tense up. Do you think other people really think that we're just sleeping together when we're adults in a hotel room in the middle of the night? Idiot, you're the only one who would think that. Do you really want to sleep with me now? Do you really want to hug me tightly? His fingers rubbed Yi Jian's originally red earlobe until it was almost transparent. It also became hotter. He looked around to see that there was no one around. His lips that were leaning towards her ear as he gently kissed her soft earlobe. He gently kissed, sucked, and bit her soft earlobe. Being seduced by his explicit words, Yi Jian's mouth was dry. She did not expect that he would kiss her earlobe. In the sudden stimulation, Yi Jian's whole body trembled violently. She let out a coquettish moan that she did not notice, but it made Xia Jinyuan's eyes even darker. This sound really took the life of Xia Jinyuan, who was still a virgin in his late 20s. If they weren't on the streets right now, he would have done her immediately. Don't make a sound. I've already endured enough. If you make another sound, I'm afraid that here. Xia Jinyuan was very calm when he acted like a rogue. He pulled Yi Qian into his arms and held Yi Qian's waist tightly with one hand, making her a part of his body. Their flesh and blood merged together, allowing her to truly feel the power of a man. It was so strong that it hurt. Don't struggle. Yi Qian felt it deeply and instinctively wanted to struggle, but Xia Jinyuan warned her in a low voice, "You've always been good at physics. Don't you know that friction creates heat?" In short, Yi Qian was being hugged by him. The only thing she could do was to not move. Otherwise, the consequences would be dire. If Comrade Xia Jinyuan wanted to be shameless, he would definitely be the founder of a sect. His shamelessness was at its peak. Time passed slowly. Yi Jian, who didn't move, still felt uncomfortable. Her hand on his shoulder slowly moved to his ear. She pulled his ear and asked in a low voice, "How long will it take for it to be quiet?" Chapter 4161. Yi Qian couldn't bear to use too much force, so she gently tugged at his neck like she was scratching an itch. She couldn't stop the founder of the shameless sect, Xia Jinyuan. On the contrary, as a man, Xia Jinyuan thought that this was his girlfriend's acknowledgement of his masculine abilities. It had been so long, but it was still going on. He felt helpless. There was nothing he could do. No one could understand the sadness of a virgin. "I know you're just trying to scare me. I'll let you do whatever you want in the middle of the night, but Kiki." But what? Yi Qian wanted to say, but she really didn't expect. Xia Jinyuan probably guessed what she wanted to say. It had been a long time, and he was affected by Luke. "Let me calm down. I'm a little excited. I need to calm down." Xia Jinyuan loosened his right hand around Yi Jian's waist, allowing the two of them to distance themselves from each other. Perhaps it was too exciting. He felt that he was a little short of oxygen, so he rested his chin on Yi Qian's shoulder like a big bear. The strong and elegant man was now showing a childlike side. His chin rubbed against Yi Qian's neck from time to time, making Yi Qian feel ticklish and angry. But more than that, she felt sorry for him. He was too strong. He was so strong that everyone thought that he would never get tired. As the captain, he indeed had an unshakable image in the team. However, he was not made of iron. He was made of flesh and blood, and he would also get tired. Only in front of her would he shed his strong side and reveal his soft side, telling her that he was actually also very tired. Just like now, he was really tired. He was so tired that even his breathing sounded tired. Yi Qian gently stroked his broad back. She didn't say anything and just quietly accompanied him, letting him rub against her like a child. If he was tired, he could just rest for a while. She knew he was tired. Now, she was his harbor when he was tired. She could let him have a good rest without any burden. He could let go of all his responsibilities and show his most tired and vulnerable side without reservation. He was her harbor, and similarly, she was the harbor for him to return to. Xia Jinyuan leaned almost all of his weight on Yi Qian, especially when she stroked his back. All of his fatigue was dispelled by her, and his body and mind were relaxed from the inside out. "If you're tired, just lean on it for a while," she said softly. Her soft voice was filled with tenderness as she coaxed him gently, as if she was coaxing a child. Xia Jinyuan, who had never shown weakness in front of others, completely let go of his strong front in front of Yi Qian. He hummed softly and his blood slowly calmed down. He was indeed tired. After seeing her, he was very excited, which was accompanied by fatigue. Especially when she acted like she was coaxing a child from time to time, it made him feel even more tired. In her eyes, he definitely wasn't the seemingly omnipotent captain. She knew that he was tired, but she also knew that he wasn't truly omnipotent and didn't know fatigue. He just kept his back straight and shouldered the responsibility on his shoulders. He didn't allow himself to fall, and he didn't even allow his back to bend. He had always been like this, standing tall like a giant. It was time to rest. Rest well. Don't let yourself be too tired when you get home. Yi Qian's hand gently stroked Xia Lingyuan's back. She used her gentleness and strength to support her tired lover. The most beautiful love was like this. They relied on each other and waited for each other. Chapter 4162. Actually, he would get tired too, but he could not easily let others know that he was tired. But in front of his little fox, he could relax, bend his back, and reveal his deeply hidden tiredness. There was no need for him to worry about anything. At this moment, the thin shoulders and slender body of the girl he loved the most were his harbor of rest. She knew him, understood him, and loved him. The cool breeze blew gently, and the night became even quieter. After leaning on her for a while, Xia Jinyuan let out a satisfied sigh and stopped leaning on her. When he stood up straight, he was like a pine tree that would not fall in the wind and snow. He was straight and tall, making people feel safe when they looked at him. Yi Qian looked up at the man whose eyes were bloodshot like spider webs. He raised his hand and gently touched his cheek. The light in his eyes trembled slightly as he asked, "Find a place to rest for a while. Since you're back, take a good rest. Put everything else aside for the time being. Let yourself have a good rest, then stand up and face it again." Her heart ached for him, so much so that it hurt to the bone. She really wanted to stand by his side as soon as possible so that she could share his burden and face more dangers with him. She really wanted to. Xia Jinyuan held the hand that was lingering on his face and smiled. "Okay, let's go to the hotel and sleep first. I'm really a little tired." "Okay." Yi Qian nodded. With a smile on his thin lips, the man held the hand of the girl he loved deeply and led her into a taxi. Xia Jinyuan was a man who could endure hardships, but when it was time to enjoy, he would never treat himself unfairly. Just as Suwon had guessed, the taxi drove them straight to the best hotel in the city, the Huatian Hotel. In the ward of the hospital's inpatient department, Suwon, who was clearly asleep, suddenly sat up with the quilt in her arms. She muttered to herself as if she had suddenly realized something. I remember. No wonder he looks familiar. I feel like I've seen him somewhere before." He Jing was also in a daze. Suddenly, she heard Su Wen's nagging. She turned over and asked vaguely, "What do you mean by familiar?" "Go to sleep. If you don't sleep, it'll be dawn soon." Jing, I finally remember when I met Jane Eyre's boyfriend. We've met before, when little Jane Eyre introduced him as her brother. Do you think the two of them started talking at that time? He Jing, who was a little sleepy, woke up a little, but she didn't open her eyes. She searched her memory, and there seemed to be such a thing, but she really didn't have any impression of this person. She estimated that it was in the first half of the freshman year, or the first half of the sophomore year. So what if they've met? What's the big deal? Didn't you say it yourself? An outstanding girl like our little Jane Eyre has no shortage of suitors. Wrong. He's not a boy. He's a man, a very mature man. He's way better than the male students in our military academy. I didn't expect little Jane Eyre to be so good at keeping secrets. She already has a boyfriend, so she completely ignores the advances of the male students around her. Suwon and He Jing both recalled the scene just now. Yes, with such a good boyfriend, she really didn't need to accept the advances of other boys. The two girls muttered for a while, then closed their eyes and went back to sleep. Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan had just arrived at the Huatian Hotel. Xia Jinyuan, who was dressed in casual clothes, asked Yi Qian to sit on the sofa in the corner of the hall, while he took his ID and went to the front desk to get a room. Chapter 4163. They went straight to the most luxurious suite in Hua Tian Hotel. As soon as the door closed, before Yi Qian could take a good look at the room, Xia Jinyuan, who came in after him, inserted the room card into the power switch with one hand and wrapped his other hand around Yi Qian's slender waist from behind. Beep! After a beep, the porch light and 2 floor lamps in the room lit up at the same time, illuminating the entire room and creating an intoxicating atmosphere. Xia Jinyuan had already carried Yi Qian in a princess carry, so there was no need to turn on the other lights. Looking down at Yi Qian's beautiful face, his sexy Adam's apple bob. It's getting late. Let's go straight to the room and sleep. Yi Qian, who had her arms around his neck, nodded obediently and said worriedly, "Just sleep and don't do anything else. You need to rest." He actually wanted to do something else, but he had to worry about going to the hospital to visit her sick roommate tomorrow. With his current level of restraint, once he started, he could foresee that he wouldn't be able to stop himself. He would cling to her from the wee hours of the morning until the day, and when he woke up, he would be on the bed again until she couldn't even get out of bed. "I won't do anything else. I'll just sleep. If you don't want to sleep, we can talk about what happened to you over the past year." I might not answer, but I'll listen. With her by his side, he really felt a little sleepy after not sleeping well for the past year and a half. If there was anything else, they could talk about it after he woke up. The bed in the suite was very big, and the blanket was very soft. Lying on it felt like sleeping in a ball of cotton, and drowsiness came immediately. Yi Qian rested her head on his shoulder. Under the warm light of the floor lamp, she used her eyes to trace his chiseled handsome face bit by bit. With every minute she looked at him, the love in her heart deepened. She didn't say anything and only watched quietly. Watching him sleep and feeling the warmth of his body made her feel so at ease. It was so good that he was back. He had returned to her side safely. "I'll let you have a good look at it tomorrow. Be good and sleep for a while." Xia Jinyuan hugged Yi Qian's shoulders tightly and pulled her closer to him, so that most of her body was leaning against him. She had to place her hand on his other shoulder to be able to do it. He closed his eyes and kissed Yi Qian's forehead. His voice was raspy and intoxicating. "If I continue watching, I won't be able to sleep anymore. I might end up doing naughty things to you. Be good. Close your eyes and sleep with me." "Okay." Yi Qian moved and kissed his chin. "Go to sleep. I won't watch anymore." He was right beside her, real and real. It would not be like in her previous dreams, where he would disappear after she woke up. Even if the sun was about to rise, he would still be by her side. Xia Jinyuan turned sideways to face Yi Qian. At this moment, Xia Jinyuan completely embraced Yi Qian and allowed her to bury her head in his embrace. This sleeping position was very, very warm. Yi Qian adjusted herself into a good position and decisively closed her eyes to stop looking at him. The corners of her lips were slightly curved. It was so sweet. He said that no matter how she looked, she would definitely do naughty things. Yes, he would definitely do naughty things. She should listen to him and stop looking. This was the best sleep Xia Jinyuan had had in the past year and a half. It was also the best sleep Yi Qian had ever had. The two of them didn't even have a single dream. They slept until 10:30 a.m. the next morning. Even their biological clocks were obedient and didn't allow them to wake up at 5 a.m. Yi Qian woke up later than Xia Jinyuan. She was woken up by a kiss. Not on her face, not on her mouth, but on her body. It was numb and a little itchy. There was also an inexplicable throbbing. Chapter 4164. Yi Qian, who had always been alert to the slightest movement, was not completely woken up by being nibbled. Even though there was an inexplicable throbbing, she only responded with humph like a little puppy. She was so lazy and soft that Xia Jinyuan, who was immersed in his work, trembled a few times in excitement. She was indeed a tormenting little vixen. That was not all. Yi Qian, who felt very comfortable, hugged Xia Jinyuan's head with both hands and pulled him into his embrace. The air in the room instantly heated up like a rocket. Xia Jinyuan, who had been sneaking kisses, did not expect to be hugged by Yi Qian. He almost fainted. The soft and bouncy touch was an extraordinary pleasure. He finally understood why there was a famous saying, "Even if I die under a peony, I will still be a romantic ghost." His entire face was buried deep in her softness. He did not want to raise his head even though he was about to pass out. Xia Jinyuan was already panting heavily. It was hot and scalding, so hot that Yi Qian slowly opened his eyes and lowered his head. Then, he was dumbfounded. The dumbfounded Yi Qian stared blankly at the head he was hugging. Although he loosened his grip, it was obvious that the head buried in his embrace had no intention of lifting up. Yi Qian's mind was blank. In other words, she felt very comfortable and throbbing just now. There was also an indescribable desire, and it was all because of Captain Xia's actions? Yi Qian's face suddenly turned red. He could not help but grip the blanket tightly. He was so nervous that even his limbs were curled up. Yi Qian, who was in a daze, felt that his breathing was not smooth, and his mind was in a mess. Next. What would Captain Xia do next? Was he really going to do that? Would she reject him? It seemed a little unlikely. But if she did not reject him, what if he did it? It was better to reject him. But what if Captain Xia really wanted it? How could she have the heart to refuse? Yi Qian was in a dilemma. He wanted to refuse, but he couldn't bear to. For the first time, Yi Qian felt like he had encountered an extremely difficult problem. Reject? Don't refuse? No matter which one he chose, it would be a headache. Xia Jinyuan took the opportunity to run amok again. How could he not understand what was going on? His girl had woken up. However, he didn't dare to move, so he took the opportunity to lick it. After he was done, he lifted his head from Yi Qian's embrace and looked at Yi Qian with his dark, elegant eyes. Then, the corners of his mouth curled up into a mischievous smile that Yi Qian was most familiar with. He said, "I almost suffocated just now. Fortunately, my lung capacity is not bad." What did he say? What did he want to say? What else was he hinting at? Yi Qian, who was still in a dilemma, seemed to have heard what Xia Jinyuan said, but also didn't seem to have heard it clearly. She looked at Xia Jinyuan, who had all the mischievous thoughts written on his face, in a daze. She blinked and pursed her lips. Her muddled mind was even more unclear of what she was thinking. After a while, Yi Qian raised her hand and gently poked his forehead with a finger. She used the strength of her finger to poke his head away from her embrace. What was she supposed to say after she poked him out? Chapter 4165. Xia Jinyuan couldn't help but chuckle. She stared at him with her dark, sleepy eyes. Her blushing cheeks made her look innocent and innocent. She pursed her lips and looked as if she didn't know where she was or what she should do. His laughter was low, mellow, and exceptionally sexy. His laughter made Yi Qian's face burn even hotter. Yi Qian had always known that he was at a disadvantage in this kind of situation. Even if the man she loved was also a novice, he had always been in the lead. "I need to go to the bathroom," she spoke in a small voice. Her face was so red that it looked like she was drunk. Danger, danger. It wasn't normal danger, but high danger. At a glance, Xia Jinyuan knew what she was thinking. His girl wanted to escape again. She wanted to escape. She could escape for a while, but not forever. The day was still long. Yi Qian got out of bed. He was so nervous that he staggered when he got out of bed. Before Xia Jinyuan could reach out to help him, he used his strong body to steady himself after 2 steps and shuffled to the bathroom in his slippers. He really needed to go to the bathroom and calm himself down. When he rushed to the bathroom and saw himself in the mirror, Yi Qian couldn't help but cover his face. This was too. His face was red, his eyes were drunk, and there was a red mark on his chest. Yi Qian thought of an idiom, a national beauty. Wasn't she a national beauty? In Xia Jinyuan's eyes, the girl who woke up after he kissed her was a national beauty that made him fall for her. She had grown up. She had really grown up. It had been almost a year and a half since he hugged her and looked at her properly. This morning, when he gently lifted her clothes, the spring scenery that entered his eyes made his nose heat up. He almost had a nosebleed. After being washed by water, her skin was like congealed fat. The garden was filled with the color of spring. He had guarded her for so many years, from the age of 14 to 22, from young to mature, from weak to strong. The girl he had been waiting for had finally grown up. Comrade Xia, who was lying on the bed, let out a satisfied sigh. The fruit was already ripe. Should he pick it? Her roommate with the surname Su was a smart person. Otherwise, she wouldn't have specifically reminded Little Fox to pay attention to her safety before she left. The so-called pay attention to safety referred to watching out for her boyfriend and not going overboard. If I don't take it off, Xia Jinyuan lifted the blanket and looked down at his energetic little brother. It must have been hard on him to hold it in for so long. He couldn't let the Little Fox's roommates see through him, but he couldn't let himself suffer. So, he had to choose a compromise. It was up to Comrade Xia to think of a compromise. Yi Qian was not familiar with this field, so she could not figure it out. After washing her face, brushing her teeth, and dawdling in the bathroom for a while, Yi Qian finally walked out of the bathroom 15 minutes later. When she came out, she saw the man lying on the bed with his muscular upper body naked. He was leaning against the bed and talking to someone on his phone. When Yi Qian saw his muscular upper body, she took a step back and seemed to shrink back. When Xia Jinyuan saw her come out, he did not give Yi Qian a chance to shrink back. He covered his phone, chuckled, and said, "Come here." He patted the spot beside him and continued talking to his friend on the phone. "You guys go ahead and have fun. I'll be back in at least a week. Don't ask me where I am. With your brains, you've already figured it out. Why? Do you want to see me make a fool of myself? Go away. Don't even think about seeing me make a fool of myself. Where are you? Outside." Chapter 4166. He didn't know what the other side said, but Xia Jinyuan directly replied with the word, "Get lost." This made Z7 laugh so hard that tears were about to come out of his eyes. Get lost, get lost. If he continued talking, he would probably fly into a rage out of humiliation. When Z7 returned to the capital, Han Zheng said to his comrades who came to the capital for a meeting, "Boss said that he doesn't have time to deal with us at the moment. As for where he is now, he asked us to guess and praised us for being able to guess it. As for other things, I don't dare to ask. I'm afraid that if I ask, he will punish me to death. So, let's stop. For the sake of our future, we can't ask anymore." The people who came to the meeting were the married Yin Rong, T6 Wu Yu, who was engaged but not married, K7, who would never participate in these topics and was more ruthless than anyone on the battlefield, and Pigeon. Including Han Zheng, the 5 of them all came to the capital. They didn't know that their captain had returned to the country and only found out when they met Major General Yang in the capital. One by one, they found out that their captain had run to Xiang City. How could they not know what was going on? He forgot his friends when he saw a girl. He forgot his friends when he saw a girl. His comrades were all looking forward to his return, but he ran out to find a girlfriend. He didn't even want his comrades anymore. They were really sad. Thus, there was such a phone call. As for whether they were really sad or not, judging from the smiles on their faces, there was nothing to be sad about. It was good to be back. The 5 of them returned to the guest house together. With Han Zheng as the host, they changed into casual clothes and went out to play together. Xia Jinyuan specially told Han Zheng to be a good host and take his comrades to play. He would pay for all the fun places they went. This time, he really didn't have the time to contact his comrades. With one hand, he hugged the girl who obediently crawled to his side and leaned against him. He saw her fingers gently stroking the scar left behind on his chest and gently wiping away the tears at the corner of her eyes. He smiled disapprovingly and said, "It's healed long ago. It doesn't hurt." How could it not hurt? At that time, she clearly saw that he was in so much pain that his face was pale and his lips were completely pale. How could it not hurt? He just didn't want others to know. Don't do stupid things like this in the future. Even if K7's skills are good, who knows if there will be an accident if he puts his life on the knife. The knife wound was about 3 centimeters long and had been stitched up. When the wound healed, it left a light pink centipede-shaped scar. This 3-centimeter scar had almost taken her life back then. Xia Jinyuan held her hand that was stroking his scar, lowered his head and kissed her forehead. There won't be a next time. This kind of thing will probably only happen once in a lifetime. Once is enough. Xia Jinyuan only dared to take the risk when he was forced into a corner. Now, he knew that he might not have the courage to do so. He held her hand and let her palm be close to his heart. He slowly told her about the things that happened during this period of time. There were some things that could be said, but there were some things that could be said. For example, when Luke took him to the bar to find a woman to pass the time, he didn't find one and just watched the whole time. At that time, I dared to make a bet because I had confirmed Luke's identity. I bet on the technology of K7, and I bet on the friendship between Luke and me. He's a very good guy, but unfortunately, I couldn't get too close to him. But when I fired the gun, I showed my face and seemed to have been discovered by him. With his intelligence, he probably knew that I didn't die. As for where I went and who I was, I'm afraid he couldn't figure it out. Cobra has committed too many crimes. In his underground market, there is only one type of living goods. After I went there, I found out that they were all girls who were sent here for some unknown reason. There were women, boys, and even girls around 12 or 13 years old. Chapter 4167. Xia Jinyuan's face was still a little gloomy at the mention of the dark underground market. There were so many missing people all over the world, and some of them ended up in the underground market as goods and were bought by people with special interests. There, you would never know the extent of the darkness of human nature. It was a darkness that you would never imagine, and perhaps you would never know. As a soldier, Xia Jinyuan had only been there once, and he had never been there again. Yi Qian listened quietly. The dangers of the past were turned into words, and he used the calmest tone to downplay the danger that he risked his life every time. With his calm tone and indifferent narration, everything became a thing of the past, an unknown story. No one knew that there was once a soldier who used his own life to complete a mission to stop the invasion of a venomous snake. No one knew that there was once a soldier who used his own life to complete a mission to stop the invasion of a venomous snake. No one knew that there was once a soldier who used the bullets in his hands in exchange for the lives of countless people. After listening, Yi Qian, whose eyes were red, kissed his chiseled jaw. "Captain Xia, you are so great. You will always be my idol." After kissing his jaw, Yi Qian propped herself up on her elbows and leaned toward him. Slowly, she lowered her head and kissed the scar on his chest. When her soft lips gently touched the scar, tears fell. Her trembling lips pressed against the scar for a long time. Xia Jinyuan saw this and gently stroked his beloved girl's back. She was scared. She was really scared. When he saw the blood spurt out, he knew that his beloved girl was scared. "It's all in the past, it's all in the past. Don't be afraid." Xia Jinyuan gently stroked and coaxed her gently until she pressed her cheek against the wound and leaned against his chest. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief. Yi Qian, whose upper body was leaning against his chest, raised her hand to wipe her tears. It's all in the past, thank goodness it's all in the past. I'm done with my story. Babe, let's talk about yours. With his arms wrapped around Yi Qian like a tree, Xia Jinyuan used a gentle voice to change the topic to Yi Qian. He desperately wanted to know what his beloved girl had gone through in the more than a year that he was away. Yi Qian, who was leaning against him, stiffened slightly. Xia Jinyuan, who was worried about her, immediately sensed that something had happened to her while he was away. What happened? Be good, tell me. He coaxed her, not daring to ask. After a long silence, Yi Qian still could not calm herself down. She whispered in a trembling voice, Captain Xia, Uncle Chen is gone. What? Uncle Chen is gone. Xia Jinyuan's eyes suddenly, and his arms around her tightened. When did this happen? Naturally, or was it an accident? An accident. Yi Qian, whose voice was choked with sobs, finally found someone to rely on. She poured out all the grief in her heart in front of Xia Jinyuan. Captain Xia, Uncle Chen was killed in an accident. Uncle Chen came to Beijing for some reason, and as soon as he walked out of the train station, he was killed by a sniper. His arms around her tightened abruptly, so much so that Yi Jian's shoulders contracted a lot. Xia Jinyuan's face was no longer cold and gloomy. He was so angry that even his voice was laced with blood. Uncle Chen is a world-class sniper. He must have sensed danger. So, the person who sniped Uncle Chen is also a world-class sniper. He got to the point. Chapter 4168. At this time, Yi Qian didn't need much pity. What she needed was someone who could help her find out who killed Uncle Chen. Xia Jinyuan knew her temperament. She was a girl who had been through so much that it made his heart ache. He knew what she needed the most. When Uncle Chen left, the girl he loved deeply must have been in great pain. Perhaps even her beliefs had collapsed. He couldn't go back to those days and accompany her through the saddest time of Uncle Chen's absence. He couldn't go back in time and go back to the past. Therefore, the only thing he could do now was to accompany her and find the murderer who killed Uncle Chen. The past couldn't be salvaged, but the future had to be faced together. Yi Qian listened to the familiar steady voice. She wiped away the tears on her face. When she spoke again, her voice was no longer as soft as before. Instead, it was cold. Major General Yang and the Commander-in-Chief both suspect that Uncle Chen sensed the danger. He sensed it and dodged accordingly. Therefore, the bullet didn't completely hit Uncle Chen's heart. But the bullet used by the sniper was not an ordinary bullet. They used dummy bullets. She didn't say it out loud, but Xia Jinyuan had already guessed it. As a world-class sniper, Uncle Chen had sensed the danger and dodged without letting the bullet hit his vitals. Therefore, there was only one possibility. The wound was dilated and caused a large area of damage. Even if the bullet didn't hit the vitals, as long as the bullet was close enough, it would still be fatal. In other words, the person who killed Uncle Chen didn't have much confidence because he knew Uncle Chen's position in the sniping world. He didn't dare to use ordinary bullet. In order to increase his chances of winning, he used the dummy bullets, which were banned internationally, as the best choice. As for why he directly guessed that the bullet was a dummy bullet and not another type of bullet that was also banned internationally, it was probably because of the time and place. The train station was a densely populated area, and it was extremely lively with people coming and going. Moreover, the hollow point bullet was a bullet that would rapidly expand and explode upon entering the target. In addition, the distance of accuracy was very short. Snipers who came with the intention of winning would naturally not choose to use hollow point bullet. Uncle Chen is most worried about me. The doctor said that the first thing that Uncle Chen said after he got into the ambulance was to ask the doctor to give him a painkiller. He said that he wanted to wait for his only family to arrive. I rushed over to see Uncle Chen for the last time. Before Uncle Chen left, he didn't forget to remind me to be careful and not to avenge him. Uncle Chen knew that his murderer was a very good sniper. He was afraid that I would go and seek revenge. He was afraid that I would lose my life as well. Captain Xia, in order to let Uncle Chen leave in peace, I pretended to agree. I'm just pretending to agree. I must find the murderer who killed Uncle Chen. I'll find him later. Every word was cold and seemed to be wrapped in ice and snow. Xia Jinyuan knew that she was crying. The wetness on her chest made his heart ache deeply. He didn't want her to cry behind his back. Xia Jinyuan pursed his thin lips and hugged Yi Qian to let her lean on his shoulder so that he could lower his head and see all the subtle expressions on her face. There was a rustling sound under the quilt. Yi Jian leaned against the broad shoulder that could make her feel at ease. His cold voice that could make her feel at ease came from above her head. I will accompany you to find the murderer and avenge Uncle Chen together. I'll accompany you and use the murderer's blood as a sacrifice to Uncle Chen. Chapter 4169. Yes. Yi Qian nodded and buried her head in his neck. The commander-in-chief also knows that I will definitely look for the murderer. He was afraid that I would be in danger, so he specifically told me that since the murderer was able to kill Uncle Chen, he must also be a world-class sniper like Uncle Chen. If I want to take revenge, I must first ask myself if I have reached the level of a world-class sniper. If I say that I haven't, I won't reach the level of a world-class sniper like Uncle Chen. Captain Xia, I can't immediately avenge Uncle Chen. I need to work harder. Only then can I truly make Uncle Chen feel at ease. Yi Qian valued relationships, especially family ties. This had a lot to do with the fact that she was not fated to have family ties in her previous life. In this life, Uncle Zhen and Principal Chen were her family members who had accompanied her as she grew up. They had pulled her through the darkest days of her life. She already felt uneasy when she went against her will and promised Principal Chen that she would not seek revenge. In that case, the only thing she could do was to make herself strong enough to take revenge and comfort Uncle Chen's soul in heaven. Xia Jinyuan, who understood her the most, lowered his head and kissed her forehead. After a long time, his cold voice was filled with strength as he said word by word, "Don't feel guilty. I will be with you. We will become stronger together and find the murderer together. If Uncle Chen's soul is in heaven, he will definitely not be angry." Yes, that was what she thought too. Thinking about the two foreigners who were taken away by the military that night, Yi Qian looked up and told Xia Jinyuan everything that had happened. Everything that happened was too coincidental. Nian Yan was the first to rush over when Uncle Chen got into trouble. Then Nian Yan encountered danger, and it happened to be 3 foreigners. Just after the 2 foreigners were arrested, another foreigner who escaped died in a car accident. There were so many coincidences that I really suspected that the foreigners who shot Nian Yan were the same group of people who sniped Uncle Chen at the train station. I told the commander-in-chief all my speculations. He told me to go back to school and wait for news. He also told me to remember his words and not to show up easily. Now that so much time has passed, there is still no news. Captain Xia, should I ask the commander-in-chief? Xia Jinyuan thought about it and disagreed. There is no need to ask. If there is news, you will be the first to know. If there is no news, it means that there is no useful information. But it is really too much of a coincidence. Maybe they're related, but you have to think about it. If they're really the same group of people, then the 3 people sent to shoot Anniversary were actually 3 useless chess pieces in the entire assassination plan. If they kill Nian Yan, everyone's happy. It doesn't matter if they can't kill Nian Yan. They'll just create another mess and make the whole thing more and more confusing. Since Uncle Chen came to Jing City, this situation has been complicated and confusing. To solve it, Xia Jinyuan, who was calmly analyzing, stared at Yi Jian and said, To solve this situation, from the moment Uncle Churn stopped you from taking revenge, I can see that it is very difficult. Abandoned chess pieces are called abandoned chess pieces because they don't have any influence. Yi Qian's heart sank when she heard this. She had already guessed that there was no news after waiting for so long, but she still wanted to confirm it. What if there was news? After Xia Jinyuan's calm analysis, she knew that there was no what if. Yi Qian, who was in low spirits, didn't say anything. Xia Jinyuan didn't enlighten her either. His girl was very smart and didn't need him to enlighten her. Chapter 4170. With Xia Jinyuan by her side, Yi Qian's sorrow didn't linger for too long. Xia Jinyuan was the best medicine for her. After the heavy topic passed, the two of them leaned on each other and supported each other. They quietly listened to the passing of time until their emotions gradually calmed down. After a while, Yi Qian gently nudged Xia Jinyuan and whispered, "I'm hungry. Let's go downstairs and eat." She wasn't just hungry. She was very hungry. Xia Jinyuan looked at the time. It was time for lunch. "I'm not going downstairs. Let's eat in the room. I'll call the hotel staff to send food over." Xia Jinyuan didn't want to go out at all. The two of them were in the same room, so close that they could see each other if they looked up. He really liked this kind of time. It was warm and reassuring. Yi Qian didn't want to go out either. She liked this kind of coexistence just as much as he did. There was no one else. It was just the two of them. The hotel staff delivered the food quickly. Xia Jinyuan was still in the bathroom when the waiter knocked on the door with a trolley. By the time he came out, Yi Qian had already placed the food and dishes neatly on the table. They were square and neat. It was obvious that Yi Qian had spent time in the military. Even when eating, she had to place everything neatly. When Yi Qian heard the commotion, she looked up and said, "They're really fast." "You!" She froze. Her dark eyes widened as she stared straight at the man who walked out without wearing anything. This hooligan. Her gaze began to slide down from his face. Well, it was completely uncontrollable. It slid down to his strong chest muscles, then to his sexy and powerful waist, and then to the part that was not suitable for children. Yi Jian's gaze stopped at this part for a few seconds, and she even subconsciously swallowed her saliva. She didn't know how big or small other men's parts were, but she definitely knew that her man was definitely a lion. Even if he was still dozing off now, his appearance was still quite spectacular. Xia Jinyuan was drying his hair with a towel. When it came to Yi Qian, he was more sensitive to anything related to her than anything else. Noticing that her gaze had lingered on his crotch for too long, Hooligan Xia raised his eyebrows and teased, "Are you measuring his size? What do you think? Are you satisfied?" This big hooligan. Yi Qian, who was pretending to be calm, looked away in a panic and said dryly, You should at least wear a towel. What if the waiter hasn't left yet? Wouldn't I suffer a huge loss?" Xia Jinyuan burst out laughing. "Do you think I can't hear the commotion outside? Come, let's talk about it first. What do you think?" Big hooligan Xia was obviously doing this on purpose. He, who was walking the big bird, wanted to sit on the sofa like a golden knife. However, when he saw the cloth sofa without any cushions, he gave up after thinking about it. It wasn't very hygienic. It was better to stand. Yi Qian's ears turned red. She put her chopsticks aside, got up, and walked quickly to the wardrobe. With a rustle of the hanger, a bathrobe from the hotel appeared in her hands. In order to make herself look calm, she turned around and walked towards Xia Jinyuan with steady steps and said, "Aren't you afraid of catching a cold? Hurry and put it on." Judging and feeling, this big hooligan is really acting like a hooligan when I'm not paying attention. Afraid that he wouldn't put it on, Yi Qian opened the bathrobe so that he could put it on with just a stretch of his hand. And the result? Xia Jinyuan looked at the white bathrobe, then at the sofa. He was going to be naked until the end. Chapter 41-71. The big hooligan planned to put the bathrobe on the sofa and sit down. However, this behavior was really immoral. Yi Jian saw through him and immediately took the initiative in her hands. She threatened, "If you dare to be naked, I'll go out now and take all your clothes with me. I'll make sure you're completely naked." This threat was too effective. The hooligan immediately changed his mind and fell for it. However, Yi Qian still underestimated the hooligan's methods. As long as he wanted to be a hooligan, there was always an opportunity. He put on the bathrobe, but he didn't tie it. During the meal, he was so relaxed that the bathrobe hung on both sides of his body. Yi Qian's mouth twitched when he saw this. Impossible to guard against. Throughout the meal, Yi Jian tried her best not to look at him. She only had eyes for the rice, the dishes, and nothing else. Xia Jinyuan sighed again and asked shamelessly, "Am I that ugly? You don't even look at me when I see you? You were lying on top of me just now. Why did you turn your back on me as soon as you got off the bed? Could it be that my charm can only be shown in bed? How about eat your food? You talk too much." Yi Qian's ears hurt. He picked up some vegetables with his chopsticks and stuffed them into Xia Jinyuan's open mouth. He glared at him and said, "Stop talking. If you say another word, I will go back to the hospital immediately." It worked every time. Xia Jinyuan behaved himself, but his handsome face looked a little aggrieved. It was as if Yi Qian had done something that hurt him and made him very sad. He even glanced at Yi Qian from time to time. When he saw Yi Qian's heart, it started to pound. In the end, Yi Qian had no choice but to put down his chopsticks and wipe his mouth with a tissue. He stood up and stood in front of Xia Jinyuan. "Look up." Hooligan Xia, who was still chewing on his food, looked up. Then, Yi Jian held his face and kissed him on the lip. "Okay, it's time to eat properly." After the kiss, Yi Qian looked at him sternly. "If you don't eat properly, I'll get angry too." After saying that, Yi Qian did not hold back her serious praise. She couldn't help but lean on Xia Jinyuan's shoulder and laugh. "Didn't we look like 3-year-olds just now? Are you stupid?" It was a very relaxed laugh, as clear as water, without any haze. Xia Jinyuan was the only person who could coax Yi Qian without any burden and laugh like a child. Xia Jinyuan rubbed her head and chuckled. "I'm the captain of the special forces, the ace in the eyes of my comrades, but I have to play the role of a 3-year-old child. I feel so wronged." "You still feel wronged?" He's clearly taking the opportunity to play rogue. Yi Jian was lying on top of him. Xia Jinyuan grabbed her and made her sit on his lap. The smile on his handsome face was full of affection. "Do you know what the definition of a hooligan is?" A hooligan is a person who deliberately makes things difficult, acts shamelessly, scams, or takes liberties with women. As for me, his deep black eyes stared at the girl in his arms. "This is called a normal courtship, a courtship with love in my heart. I didn't do any hooligan acts." He was still biting on the words. Yi Qian looked at him with a smile and said slowly, "But I said you were a hooligan. You are a hooligan. You're accusing me of a crime I didn't commit. If I don't commit a crime, I'll be letting you down." As he spoke, he suddenly got up with Yi Qian in his arms. His dark eyes made Yi Qian's heart tremble. "I have to prove this crime," he said as he carried Yi Qian into the suite. Chapter 41-72. Yi Qian felt as if there was a little deer bumping around in her heart. She was flustered, her hands were sweating, and she didn't know what to do. Really? Really?" Lying on the bed, Yi Qian looked at the man leaning over her. She bit her lip and said shyly, "Can you not do it for real? Is there any other way? We can solve it in other ways." If he really did it for real. She felt uncertain and panicked. Xia Jinyuan leaned over her and whispered something into her ear. Yi Qian's face turned red at a visible speed, as if she was drunk. She was so beautiful that Xia Jinyuan's breathing became heavier. Of course, they couldn't do it for real, but they could do it in a way that was both real and fake. They couldn't do it for real, but they could still do it for the foreplay. The two of them spent their time together whispering sweet nothings to each other and exploring each other's body structure. If it weren't for Yi Qian asking from time to time, "Are you done? Are you done?" Xia Jinyuan wanted to continue this battle of attrition. Later on, Yi Qian really couldn't take it anymore, so Xia Jinyuan asked Yi Qian to use her hands again. A lively scene was unfolding intensely. Under Yi Qian's relentless efforts, the sound of a man panting could be heard in the room. It sounded like he was about to explode, but it also sounded like he was relieved of something. Then, there was the sound of something bouncy falling off, followed by an unusual smell in the hot air. After a series of movements that were both real and fake, Yi Qian was about to collapse. She gasped for air like a fish trapped in shallow water, desperately needing oxygen. Xia Jinyuan, who was hugging her from behind, heard her panting even more rapidly than his own. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Just now I was the one who had to use the most effort, right? Why are you panting and weak like a noodle now? We haven't even started, and you're already so tired? What should we do in the future?" He lowered his head and kissed her round and beautiful shoulder. The teasing in his laughter made Yi Qian want to cover his face with the blanket. Although she didn't cross the final hurdle, she felt that everything was done. "You're sweating more than me. Nervous? Afraid?" he asked again. Yi Qian closed his eyes, his eyelashes trembling as he answered, "Both. Unfamiliar the first time, familiar the second time. It'll be fine the next time. Next time." He didn't let her back face him. He hugged her arms and flipped her so that they were face to face. Seeing Yi Qian blushing and looking exceptionally gorgeous, Xia Jinyuan, whose heart was racing, lowered his head and kissed the tip of her nose. "Rest for a while, then go take a shower. You go first, and, that thing, you deal with it." After Yi Qian finished speaking, he shut his eyes tightly, not even daring to open them. Seeing how shy she was, Xia Jinyuan couldn't be any happier. "Silly girl, what should we do in the future? In the future, after we're done, will you close your eyes and not look at me?" Yi Qian didn't say anything. She shook her head to express her refusal to talk. She just wanted to be alone and get rid of the shyness in her heart. Actually, Xia Jinyuan was a little embarrassed himself. After all, he was also a newbie, and he solved the problem by not entering the room. He was also a little embarrassed. Chapter 41-73. However, he was a man after all. He could accept such things faster than a woman. "Okay, I'll clean up first. You rest for a while." His face was so red that it was almost burning. If he continued talking to her, Xia Jinyuan was worried that she would kick him off the bed. He might as well get off the bed obediently. He put on a bathrobe and picked up the condom he had just used. He was just short of whistling as he walked into the bathroom. After he got off the bed, Yi Qian dared to open her eyes a little. It was not until he walked into the bathroom and closed the door that Yi Qian dared to fully open her eyes. She took in deep breaths like a fish back in the water. The sound of running water came from the bathroom. Then, she heard him humming a song. It was not a pop song, but a military song. Yi Qian listened and burst out laughing. She did not expect Captain Xia to stop in the end. She almost thought that they were going to do it today, but he held back. "It's not the right time. I don't want you to feel burdened. Just bear with it. But it's not bad now." As they rubbed against each other, she closed her eyes and heard him whispering in her ear, "The last and best time shouldn't be in a hotel. We should be in our own home. It's beautiful and unforgettable. It can make you completely relax and accept me." He spoke in a very low voice. His voice was so tight that it sounded like it would break at any moment. However, it instantly made her uneasiness disappear. After the two of them cleaned up, Xia Jinyuan lay back on the bed and saw that Yi Qian's inner thighs were red from the friction. He quickly got up from the bed and said, "I'll be back soon." Then he left the room. When he returned to the room, he had a cooling gel in his hand. He did not expect to make her inner thighs so red. It was as if she had an allergic reaction. His heart skipped a beat. He should not have taken so long. He should not have used so much strength. He should not have used such a method. Xia Jinyuan suddenly regretted it. The cooling gel was applied, and the burning sensation was instantly relieved. Yi Qian, who was sitting down, looked at the man's tightly pursed lips and the trace of annoyance between his brows. She knew in her heart that his heart was aching for her. "It's nothing. I'll be fine after sleeping for a while." Yi Qian poked his shoulder and whispered, "It just looks scary. It's not a big deal." "There won't be a next time," Xia Jinyuan answered without looking up, his fingers continuing to gently smear. Yi Qian was momentarily at a loss for words. Would there be a next time? She felt a little embarrassed to say, "It's okay," but she felt a little unreasonable to say, "I got it." In the end, Yi Qian simply hugged the neck of the man who was currently feeling guilty. His arms swayed gently. "Sleep, sleep. I want to sleep again. After she wakes up, let's go to the hospital to visit her." He shook Xia Jinyuan so hard that he didn't lose his temper at all. The little guy had improved. In the past, she didn't act coquettishly in front of him. This time, she was getting used to it. Afraid that she would be tired, he let her lie down. Xia Jinyuan then gently covered the two of them with the blanket. "I applied the medicine, but don't rub it. If your condition doesn't improve after you wake up, we'll go to the hospital to get the doctor to prescribe some medicine. You still have to train, so you have to take care of it." A moment of indulgence had harmed her. There wouldn't be a next time. He thought that this would be fine, but he didn't expect it to still affect her. Comrade Xia Jinyuan, who had zero experience, did not realize that the reason Yi Qian's inner thighs were red was because he had been doing it for too long. Chapter 4174. When she woke up, Yi Qian was fine. Xia Jinyuan was relieved after confirming that there were no bruises or swelling. Yi Qian didn't think there was anything wrong with him. It was normal for him to get bruises during training. It was just a little red from friction, and he even applied a cooling gel to reduce swelling. She actually felt that he was making a mountain out of a molehill. But seeing how nervous he was, Yi Qian felt that, well, it was pretty good. When they left the hotel, it was already past 4 in the afternoon. The two of them arrived at the hospital in high spirits. First, they were greeted by Su Wen's baptism. Then, she secretly winked at Yi Qian. Her meaning couldn't be more obvious. Yi Qian smiled and glared at her. He was very calm. Because nothing substantial had happened, of course she was calm. If it had really happened, she would have been too embarrassed to face her roommates. When Su Wen saw this, she chuckled. Not bad. She actually managed to hold back when dry wood met fire. Yi Qian raised his eyebrows in response to Su Wen. Xia Jinyuan saw the exchange of glances between the two of them. He could tell that his girl was getting along well with her two roommates and had a deep friendship. They were classmates in the same school and class for 4 years. After graduation, even if they went to different positions, even if they gradually lost contact with each other due to job changes, when they thought back to their 4 years in the military academy, the memories of their 4 years as classmates were still fresh in their mind. Yi Qian and the two girls had a lot to talk about. Xia Jinyuan, who was sitting beside them, was a loyal listener. Occasionally, he would say a few words, but it was always Yi Qian who threw the topic to him before he spoke. He never took the initiative to interrupt. The only person who paid attention to the whole process was Yi Qian. His gentle smile and doting gaze were all for Yi Qian. When it was Su Wen and He Jing's turn to speak, His gentle smile would turn into an elegant and impolite smile. His eyes would contain a sense of distance between him and girls. He looked elegant, but it made Su-won and He-jing feel that he was not a man who was easy to get along with. Su-won was still afraid that Yi Qian would be taken advantage of, so she tried to sound him out. In the end, she said casually, "I really don't understand why people think that they can still be friends after breaking up. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to accept that my boyfriend was still in contact with his ex-girlfriend. I can't help it. I'm petty and won't contact my ex. I also hope that my current boyfriend won't contact his ex-girlfriend." When the topic of boyfriend and girlfriend can still become friends after breaking up was thrown out, everyone expressed their own opinions. Some people thought that there was no relationship, while others insisted on not agreeing. In short, everyone had their own reasons, and there was no way to clarify it. Su-won asked this because she was considering it from Yi Qian's perspective. She did not want her good friend to encounter any trouble in his relationship, because the three of them had talked about this before, and their opinions were the same. After a couple broke up, they should not continue to be friends with their ex for the sake of their future. At this moment, Su-won brought up the topic because she wanted to see how Xia Jinyuan would react. When Yi Qian heard this, he turned his head sideways and laughed. This problem was not a problem for Captain Xia at all. Also, with Captain Xia's sharp mind, he had already seen through Wenzi's little plans. If she wanted to make things difficult for Wenzi, compared to the difficulty of making things difficult for the commander-in-chief, one was kindergarten, and the other was society. They were not on the same level at all. Captain Xia could even easily resolve the commander-in-chief's difficulties, let alone Wenzi's kindergarten level of difficulties. Chapter 4175. How could the smiling Xia Jinyuan not tell that among the three people in the dormitory, only Su-won had the most ideas? Hearing this, he laughed and said, "Jane Eyre and I are both first loves, so there's no such thing as an ex. But in my opinion, since an ex is an ex, it should be a clean break. Being together after a break will hurt the current one. After all, we've been together intimately. And my father said that if I didn't marry Jane Eyre, he didn't plan to keep his son anymore and would directly acknowledge Jane Eyre as his daughter. Old Master and Old Madam also said that other than Jane Eyre, no other woman can step into our house. Even my uncles, aunts, cousins, and cousin-in-law all smiled and told me that since there are more men in the family, it won't affect anything if one of them is missing." This answer was so valiant that Su-wen's subsequent attacks were all like bubbles that burst without a poke. If she understood correctly, Jane Eyre had already met her boyfriend's father, his grandparents, his uncles, his cousins, and his cousin-in-law. Then, she received the approval of her boyfriend's entire family, to the point that if this man in front of her didn't marry Jane Eyre, he wouldn't even be able to return home. Su-won felt. She patted Yi Qian's shoulder heavily and said seriously, "As expected of little Jane Eyre, you're outstanding in all aspects. Well done." She was so beautiful that her boyfriend's family approved of her and didn't want him anymore. "Our little Jane Eyre is amazing." He-jing was also shocked. In the morning, she had told Su-won that she didn't know if Yi Qian had met her boyfriend's family or if she had carefully understood him. After being in a relationship, she really understood that a relationship could be a matter between you and your boyfriend, but marriage was a matter between two families. If the man or woman was unhappy in any way, it was easy for problems to arise between the two of them. Therefore, she didn't stop Su-won from testing Yi Qian's boyfriend's attitude. Who would have thought that he had already met his parents and was only one step away from attaining enlightenment? She also did not expect that the man in front of her, who seemed to be on a different level from them, was actually Yi Qian's first love. Even He-jing felt that it was a little unbelievable. She really couldn't tell that such a handsome man was Yi Qian's first love. Su-won said, "You're a young master from the capital. You're not bad-looking and your family background isn't bad either. If you're Jane Eyre's first love, it's quite admirable. Regarding the topic of your ex, your answer is also not bad. The three of us have discussed it before, and we all agreed that we should never contact our ex after breaking up. Of course, this has nothing to do with Jane Eyre, because she has never had a boyfriend, and you are her first love. However, as you know, our little Jane Eyre is a very outstanding girl. Let me do a rough count of the male students who are pursuing her. There's probably a whole row of them. Yi Qian made a sound of surprise and asked her, "Where did you get this data from?" "From the male students who have spoken to me?" "True data. Apart from training and studying, you live like a nun. It's normal that you don't know. In any case, He Jing and I both know." He Jing indicated that she didn't know either. Su Wen even gave her a look. He Jing didn't react, but they had a tacit understanding built up over the years. She only needed to answer with a single word, yes. However, her reaction was half a beat too slow. She first said, "Ah," and then, "Oh." The credibility of the story instantly decreased. Chapter 4176. Su Wen was so angry that her liver hurt. "My two comrades, can't you see that I'm just trying to make Jane Eyre's boyfriend feel more dangerous?" Xia Jinyuan couldn't help but laugh and shake his head. There were a lot of male students who had a crush on his girl, but compared to Qin Xiu, he really didn't take them seriously. Without the cooperation of her roommates, Su Wen insisted to the end. She said to Xia Jinyuan sternly, "So, please treat our little Jane Eyre well. You can't let her suffer. We are all Jane Eyre's family. If you dare to mistreat her, our family will definitely cause trouble for you." This conversation was undoubtedly gentle. Yi Qian gently held Su Wen's hand and whispered, "Don't worry. If he dares to bully me, my family won't have to do anything. I'll deal with him myself." "I'll deal with myself first," Xia Jinyuan replied as he looked at her gently. Su Wen said, Okay, we're done chatting. You guys are welcome." It was so sweet that she felt as if she was soaked in honey. But there wasn't much time left for such sweet days. It couldn't be counted in days, but in hours. He Jing would be discharged from the hospital the next morning. It was already 6 o'clock in the evening, and they had to report back to school before 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They still had 14 hours to spend together, including the time to send Jian back to school. Yi Qian and Xia Jinyuan planned to invite the two of them out for a meal, but they were righteously rejected. Soon after, they were asked to leave the ward by Su Wen. This time, Su Wen didn't remind the two of them to be careful. From their conversation today, she could tell that Xia Jinyuan really cared about Yi Qian. A man who knew how to care for his girlfriend must be a very good man. Jane Eyre found a boyfriend. After walking out of the hospital, Xia Jinyuan said to Yi Qian with a smile, "They're both pretty good. I have the urge to introduce the two of them to the bachelors in the team." This suggestion was not bad. However, Wenzi had said that she would definitely not find a husband who did not return home all year round because she did not want her husband to be like her father. As for Jingjing, she hoped to live in the same city as her husband. This way they could take care of each other during their holidays. Xia Jinyuan only said it casually and did not put it into action. After dinner, the two of them did not return to the hotel immediately. Instead, they held hands and strolled around the streets together. This time, Yi Qian did not wear his military uniform. The two of them openly held hands and enjoyed their time together like a normal couple. This was the first time in the 3.5 years that the two of them went shopping hand in hand. They even went to the women's section. Xia Jinyuan smiled and accompanied Yi Qian the whole time. When she tried on clothes, he waited quietly. When she came out, he praised her sincerely. He even made a girl who was trying on clothes secretly pinch her boyfriend's waist. The two of them looked too outstanding. Since it was a holiday and there were many people, they were almost misunderstood as a couple of celebrities. In the end, the two of them did not buy any clothes and walked out of the mall empty-handed. This was because they rarely wore casual clothes throughout the 4 seasons. They wore military uniforms during spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Yi Qian felt that it was a waste to buy casual clothes. No matter how beautiful the clothes were, they should be kept in the closet. The two of them strolled around the streets hand in hand. However, they did not know that Demon King Li had already left the airport and was in a taxi heading straight to the military academy where Yi Qian was studying. Chapter 4177. For the first time in a few years, the two of them held hands and went shopping like a normal couple until 11 o'clock. They even indulged themselves by going to the snack street next to the pedestrian street for a midnight snack. Yi Qian, who was resting on a bench by the street with her head resting on Xia Jinyuan's shoulder, felt like she was dreaming. She couldn't believe that she and Xia Jinyuan could spend such a leisurely night together. It really felt like a dream. Yi Qian looked down at her hand that was tightly held by the man beside her, then looked up at the side of his face. Under the streetlight, Yi Qian could see the smile on his face. He was obviously as happy as she was. Yi Qian couldn't help but say softly, "I'm so happy. I hope there will be more opportunities like tonight in the future." She was a little reluctant to go back to the hotel now. She greedily wanted to spend more time together so that they could spend more time alone. The couples on the streets were all like this. Perhaps they didn't think that it would be difficult for two people to hold hands and go shopping together. They only needed a phone call, a thought, and they could immediately hold hands and go shopping together. Because such a lifestyle was within reach, they didn't cherish it so much. Even if there was a day when their love wasn't so passionate, they clearly had countless memories of shopping together hand in hand. However, the memories were blurry and they didn't even care about it. For Xia Jinyuan and Yi Qian, tonight's day of shopping together hand in hand would be a beautiful day for the rest of their lives. Even when they were old, the memories were still vivid in their minds, as if it was just yesterday. Because there was too little time for the two of them to hold hands and go shopping together. It was so little that tonight was the first time they truly held hands and went shopping like a normal couple after being in a relationship for a few years. Hearing her soft murmur, Xia Jinyuan, who felt bitter in his heart, only felt guilty. He held her hand, brought it to his mouth, and gently kissed the back of her hand. He replied softly, "I'm sorry to have made you feel wronged. I can't give us too many days of shopping together hand in hand. Please forgive me." He couldn't give her the life of a normal couple. He felt guilty, but the only thing he could do was to love her deeply every day, every minute and every second. He wanted her to know that he was always by her side and had never gone far. Yi Qian did not feel wronged, nor did she think that her man needed to apologize to her. Hearing that, she smiled and said, "Captain Xia, I'm very happy. Really very, very happy. With you by my side, no matter how hard and tiring it is, I'm still happy. Because you are my Captain Xia, the only man I love deeply. Because I understand you and I understand myself, I'm really happy. Once or twice I've enjoyed a leisurely day like tonight. But if I were to have days like this every day, I'd feel uneasy. I'd think it's a waste and I'd feel regret. It's enough to have such days once or twice. It's enough for me to recall them when I'm tired and sweep away all my tiredness." Yi Qian spoke softly, and the smile in her eyes was very deep and happy. Xia Jinyuan tilted his head slightly and looked at the daisy-like girl beside him. Hearing her reply, he felt that his life was really worth it. Finding her and having her was really worth it. Xia Jinyuan loosened his grip on her hand and put his arm around her shoulders. He said softly, "As long as I have time, I'll definitely spend more time like tonight with you. We also need to relax and return to our normal lives. We need to be able to hold hands and go shopping like normal couples. We'll have more of such days in the future." Chapter 4178. His voice was like the melodious sound of a cello, and every word he said was like a musical note. It was so light and beautiful, and it made her so happy and blissful. Yi Jian's eyes were full of smiles as she looked around. Then, while people were passing by, she quickly raised her head and kissed Xia Jinyuan's cheek. After kissing him, she was a little embarrassed and buried her head in his shoulder. She was secretly happy by herself. Although she was a little embarrassed, she was very happy. Xia Jinyuan couldn't help but chuckle. He rubbed the back of her head and calmly kissed the top of her head. He smiled gently and said, "In the future, we'll walk and shop like them. We'll have it all, but we can't be the most important part." After secretly kissing him, Yi Qian laughed to herself and rested her head on Xia Jinyuan's shoulder again. Her gaze was calm and distant as she looked at the people walking around on the pedestrian street at 11 o'clock. She didn't know what to say to a couple, but they couldn't hide the sweet smile on their faces. She saw a few girls holding the trophies they had obtained today, and they held each other's hands with carefree smiles on their faces. Then, she saw a few boys laughing as they walked. Looking at them, the smile on Yi Qian's face deepened. Under the colorful neon lights, Yi Qian looked at the man beside her. The colorful lights were reflected in her dark and bright eyes. When she smiled, the colors of the lights dimmed, and only her smile was bright and beautiful. Even without makeup, she was still beautiful. "I'll wait for the next day when we go shopping together. But Captain Xia, the life I want has never been comfortable, and the life I want is not like this. Although spending tonight like this is a luxury for me and you, it's not what I want. So, you don't have to feel guilty or sorry for not being able to accompany me. The focus of our lives isn't here, so there's nothing to feel guilty about." Her words filled Xia Jinyuan's chest. He felt bitter yet satisfied. He hugged her shoulders tightly, and the two of them snuggled closer together. A faint sigh disappeared from his mouth. This was his girl. Just as the old man had said, the stubbornness in her bones and the bravery in her blood made her a natural-born soldier. She would feel happy for a short moment of happiness, and she would feel satisfied because of a single companionship, but she would never indulge in a long time and pursue comfort. After a long time, Xia Jinyuan kissed her forehead and said in a low voice, "We will go very, very far. We will definitely go very, very far." "Yes, we definitely will." Yi Qian nodded. She firmly believed that she and Captain Xia would be able to go far together. There was a lot of traffic on the road. Although it was late at night, the streets were still lively. The two who didn't buy anything got up and gave their seats to another couple. It was past 11 o'clock, and they had to go back to the hotel to rest. They took a taxi back to the hotel and whispered to each other as they walked into the hotel lobby. As soon as they reached the center of the lobby, Xia Jinyuan, who was originally talking with his head lowered, frowned slightly. His gaze swept over to the sofa in the corner of the lobby like an arrow. Seeing his brother-in-law sitting on the sofa and staring at him coldly, Xia Jinyuan immediately changed his gaze. He said to Yi Qian in a low voice, "This time, the real family is here. 5 o'clock, single sofa." His brother-in-law, who was not to be trifled with, was here. If his gaze could materialize, it would definitely be a shining axe. With one swing of the axe, he would cut off the hand that was holding Yi Qian. Chapter 4179. Yi Qian followed Xia Jinyuan's words and quickly looked in the direction of the sofa. Her eyes lit up as she grabbed Xia Jinyuan's hand and ran towards her older brother, who was smiling at her. "Don't run, the floor was just waxed." Li Jinyan saw his sister running over and quickly reminded her, "Be careful not to fall." Xia Jinyuan pulled his girlfriend back in time as all her attention was on his brother-in-law. His heart felt a little sour. His brother-in-law was coming over to take his little fox. Most importantly, he couldn't sleep on the same bed as his little fox tonight. Thinking of this, Lieutenant Colonel Xia felt as if he had been struck by a bolt from the blue. His little fox had to go back to school tomorrow, and there wasn't much time for them to openly hold hands like today. He even wanted to just chat under the covers and not do anything else tonight. Who knew? Man proposes, God disposes. No matter how good his plan was, it was useless. With his brother-in-law here tonight, he couldn't even dream of just chatting under the covers. Before they were legally married, his brother-in-law would never allow them to stay in the same room and sleep on the same bed. Yi Qian was overjoyed to see her brother, so how could she think so much? She quickly walked up to Li Jinyan and smiled so widely that her eyes curved into crescents. "Brother, when did you get here? Did you wait for a long time?" She didn't even ask how Li Jinyan found the hotel she was staying at. There was no need to ask, as long as Li Jinyan wanted to know, he would definitely know. His gaze swept toward Xia Jinyuan with a cold and stern expression. When he looked at Yi Qian, Demon King Li's expression was like a spring breeze, and a faint smile appeared on his cold and handsome face. "I didn't get here long." As he spoke, he raised his head and rubbed Yi Qian's head. This action, Xia Jinyuan liked it and Li Jinyan liked it too. The only difference was that one was filled with love, while the other was filled with affection. Xia Jinyuan glanced at the big hand rubbing his girlfriend's head and smiled as he greeted his brother-in-law. "Long time no see." Long time no see." Li Jinyan gave a simple greeting. He glanced at the two of them who were still holding hands and said indifferently, "Did you go out to play? Are you tired? Sit down and rest for a while." "I went to the pedestrian street for a walk. I'm about to graduate, but it's my first time going there. It's very lively, and many shops are open until the wee hours of the morning," Yi Qian, who was very happy, answered honestly. He then asked Li Jinyan, "Brother, are you on vacation? Rest for a few days? Did you go home?" One question after another, Li Jinyan pointed to the single-seater sofa he was sitting on and smiled. "Even if you're not tired, why don't you sit down and have a chat? I'll answer your 3 consecutive questions after sitting down." In fact, he had also asked 3 questions in a row, and each question was full of meaning. With such a brother-in-law, Xia Jinyuan had no choice but to be honest. Dare to be dishonest? If his brother-in-law were to make a move, he would suffer internal injuries in a matter of minutes. Therefore, Xia Jinyuan considerately said, "Brother is right. Even if you're not tired, you should sit down. You guys chat first, I'll go order 2 drinks. What do you want to drink, brother?" He let Yi Qian sit on the single-seater sofa and asked his brother-in-law, Demon King Li. Demon King Li treated his sister like a spring breeze, but was much colder to the guy who snatched his sister away. He politely said, "A glass of water, thank you." Yi Qian also asked for water, so Xia Jinyuan walked straight to the waiter. Seeing that the siblings were already chatting, Xia Jinyuan narrowed his eyes and walked to the front desk. He had to hurry and book 2 rooms. Chapter 4180. Otherwise, if he went upstairs and entered the same room as Little Fox, with his brother-in-law's temper, there would probably be a fight tonight. Li Jinyan said, "I'm not resting. I'm here to attend a meeting at your military academy. The Reef Island needs a group of technical talents, and we plan to select a group from your school." In 2003, China's maritime air defense was at a disadvantage, especially after the incident on the first day of April in 2001. A pilot sacrificed his life to protect China's maritime air defense. Amidst the grief of the nation, the military issued 3 red edicts. Because of this, Li Jinyan and the others began a comprehensive construction of the southern seas. Construction required the recruitment of talents, and they began to recruit talents from the military academy. Together, they would complete 2 of the 3 red edicts. These were Navy and Air Force secrets, so Li Jinyan naturally couldn't reveal them to Yi Qian. He only said that he needed a group of talents before coming over. Yi Qian naturally wouldn't ask for details. When she heard that it was her school, her eyes shone brightly. Then, will you be staying at our school? Of course. Your school provides accommodation, so why would I need to go outside? When Li Jinyan saw that she was so happy because of his arrival, he, who was usually stern and cold, dropped his indifference. There was warmth in his cold voice as he said, "This is a good opportunity to take a good look at your performance in school. If I find any problems, you have to be more alert. I won't be merciful." This sentence was very familiar. Yi Qian instantly recalled that year when she was brought by Captain Xia to Big Brother's team and met Big Brother, who was called the Devil by the water ghosts. On the first day of training, he only said, "I won't be merciful." After that, he didn't give any orders, only occasionally glancing over. To this day Yi Qian could still remember that gaze. It was filled with distrust. At that time, she was also angered by that gaze, but she didn't dare to show it. She could only compete in secret, and only after a week did Big Brother personally teach her. Now, when Big Brother said he wouldn't be merciful, he really wouldn't be merciful. Hearing the familiar sound of footsteps, Yi Qian instinctively looked up and saw her impressive-looking boyfriend walking over with 3 cups of water. As she looked at them, Yi Qian couldn't help but cover her face and laugh. "What are you laughing at?" She suddenly laughed. Li Jinyan, who was confused, asked, "Do you think I'm joking?" No, that's not it." Yi Qian smiled and sighed. "I'm laughing because I'm usually taken care of by you and Captain Xia, but when it comes to training, each of you is more ruthless than the other. That time during the underwater training, I didn't have time to rush out of the water. Big Brother, do you still remember how you treated me then? You raised your foot directly. You didn't even use your hand. You stepped on my head and pressed it into the water." He remembered. How could he not remember? Li Jinyan's breathing quickened, and he adjusted his sitting posture in an unnatural manner. He said faintly, "I don't have any impression of him. I treated everyone equally during training, so I don't have any special impression of him." That time, after he raised his foot and stepped down, he remembered that the person he stepped on wasn't a male soldier in the team, but a female soldier. Unfortunately, his reaction was a little slow. By the time he thought of it, he had already stepped down, so he didn't retract his foot. Yi Qian felt that it was impossible for her Big Brother to not have any impression of it. She still remembered that when she resurfaced, the water ghosts of the observation team all ran over to pull her out. The Great Mermaid even secretly told her not to mind. Just now, when the Devil King stepped on her, she almost fell into the water with him. Chapter 4181. But it was also possible that he had forgotten. Just as Big Brother had said, he treated everyone equally during training. Perhaps when he stepped into the water that day, he thought he was stepping on a male soldier. Therefore, Yi Qian did not probe any further. He smiled casually and said, "I forgot. I'm afraid it's hard for me to forget. That step was unforgettable." Li Jinyan replied with an indifferent Then he said casually, "It's normal for there to be many unforgettable things during training. I have them too." As he spoke, he lifted his chin slightly and said, "I'll go fetch him. Each of you bring 3 glasses of water. Don't drop the glasses." Xia Jinyuan, who was walking over with the glasses of water, was Big Brother Demon King Li's savior. After he finished speaking, he immediately got up and went over to greet him. Xia Jinyuan, who had no idea what was going on, was surprised to see his brother-in-law personally come over to fetch the glasses of water. Yi Qian wanted to say, "No need." But he saw his brother quickly get up and stride out. Why did it look like he was running away? Yi Jian narrowed his eyes slightly and quickly understood what was going on. Wasn't he running away in defeat? Because Big Brother did not forget that he had stepped on her head and cruelly stomped her back into the water. Now that she had suddenly brought it up, Big Brother felt awkward and did not dare to face her, so He ran away. At this moment, Li Jinyan looked at Xia Jinyuan with a much softer gaze. Now that there was a scapegoat who could continue the topic of training, he naturally welcomed him. Li Jinyan took one of the glasses of water, thanked him, and sat back down on the sofa. When Xia Jinyuan sat down, Big Brother Demon King said calmly, "Just now, my sister said that you were quite harsh on her during training. I only know of one time. Could there have been more harsh training than that?" This time, it was Xia Jinyuan's turn to adjust his sitting posture. His intuition told him that since his brother-in-law had suddenly asked him a question, it must be because the two siblings had talked about some sensitive topic about scolding the little fox. Especially the phrase, "You were quite harsh on her during training." The word "also" was the most important part of the sentence. It could be understood that his brother-in-law was also very harsh on Little Fox during training. That was why he said the word "also" when he asked him about it. In the blink of an eye, Xia Jinyuan had already figured out the crux of the matter. Therefore, he smiled and said, "She was quite ruthless. When she came back from Big Brother, she told me that other than me, there was another person who was so ruthless to her. Back then, when I sent her to Big Brother's team, with Big Brother's boldness, I'm afraid he was even more ruthless than me. After all, the team was just established, how could he not be ruthless? That's why my sister said that when it comes to training, both of us will be harsh on her." Li Jinyan, who had picked up the question again, calmly threw the question back. "I don't know how cruel you are to my sister. I'll have a good chat with her later." In the battle between his brother-in-law and his future brother-in-law, his brother-in-law had won. Although his future brother-in-law had lost, he had lost calmly. He even smiled and said, "Why don't we have a chat tonight? We haven't seen each other for a long time. I can't bear to spend my time sleeping." "Fine, let's chat. I'll see how long he can chat." Li Jinyan nodded. "Sure, let's chat in your room?" "Let's chat in my sister's room." Therefore, it was Yi Qian's turn to adjust his sitting posture. Then, she and Captain Xia did not share a room. Her room? The two of them shared a room. Chapter 4182. After the initial excitement, Yi Qian started to feel uneasy. How was she going to explain this to her brother? She couldn't possibly say that she had only arrived at the hotel tonight, right? No, she couldn't say that. Since her brother came directly to the hotel to wait for her, he must have known that she had slept in the hotel with Captain Xia last night. Then, did her brother also know that she had slept in the same room with Captain Xia last night? He probably didn't know. If he did, he wouldn't have said that he had gone to her room or Captain Xia's room. Thinking of this, Yi Qian heaved a sigh of relief. It was fine if he didn't know. In order not to expose herself, she could have just said that she had gone to Captain Xia's room. Both are fine. Our rooms are on the same floor. Xia Jinyuan smiled. One room is 1608, the other is 1601. It's very close. 2 rooms. Yi Jian blinked and took another look at her man without anyone noticing. When did he get 2 rooms? Last night? That was impossible. She only saw 1 room card in his hand last night. Li Jinyan did not notice Yi Qian's little movements. He only stared at Xia Jinyuan. Based on his understanding of Xia Jinyuan, he was a dishonest guy who would bite even the bones of others. Why would he get 2 rooms? When he entered the hotel just now, he wanted to hang on to his sister. He held her hand and put his arm around her shoulders. Why would he get 2 rooms when he had so many little movements? Li Jinyan could not believe it. He saw the unmade bed in room 1601 and the cups on the coffee table, as well as the 2 pairs of unwrapped disposable slippers. Then he saw the same thing in room 1608. Only then did he believe that there were 2 rooms. Standing in room 1608, which was the room they had slept in together last night, Yi Qian would have thought that she had slept in room 1601 and not room 1608 if she hadn't seen the unfinished drink from her lunch. The two rooms looked like the two of them had slept in separate rooms last night. Li Jinyan's room was 1613. He took the room card from Xia Jinyuan and said to Yi Qian, "I'll go back to my room and wash up. If you want to sleep, go back to your room. I have something to talk to him about." Yi Qian's room was naturally room 1601. Hearing this, he shook his head and said, "I woke up quite late today. I don't want to sleep. Let's talk later. I haven't seen Big Brother for a long time. I want to talk." "All right, I'll listen to you." Li Jinyan smiled and rubbed Yi Qian's head. He only stopped when he rubbed Yi Qian's handsome short hair into a bird's nest. "I'll be there in 5 minutes," Xia Jinyuan said. "All right, we'll wait for you." What could he do in 5 minutes? At most, he could make Xia Jinyuan do something. The atmosphere instantly dropped. Demon Kingly, who was protecting his sister, pursed his lips and left the room. Together with Big Brother, Yi Qian patted her chest and exclaimed, "I'm so nervous, so nervous." Just as Xia Jinyuan couldn't help but laugh, she asked, "Why are there 2 rooms? There clearly aren't any. You even disguised the rooms as if someone had slept in them. How did you do it? You didn't expect my brother to come over, did you? Don't tell me all of you are going to attend the talent recruitment meeting." 2 rooms. Disguising the scene. It's just a small matter. Her nervous look successfully made Lieutenant Colonel Xia laugh nonstop. He pulled her into his arms and carefully dispelled her doubts. "I'll go get some water and quickly go to the front desk to get a room. I'll also ask their staff to go to room 1601 to mess up our shoes, towels, and everything. We must pretend that someone has slept in room 1601. We were chatting downstairs. The staff on the 16th floor helped us disguise the scene. They know how to make it look like someone had slept in the room. So, room 1601 became what you saw just now." Chapter 4183. This kind of small matter was nothing to Xia Jinyuan. With just a few words, he resolved Yi Qian's nervousness. After listening to his arrangements, Yi Qian really felt that if these Special Forces soldiers really wanted to do something bad, they would meet their match. Just now, even Big Brother, who was also a Special Forces soldier, was fooled. Yi Qian gave her man a thumbs up. "You actually did such a big thing in the time it took to pour a glass of water. Captain Xia, you're a prophet." Big Brother had once told her not to let Captain Xia do anything to her so that she wouldn't be at a disadvantage. And the result? After seeing Captain Xia, she immediately threw Big Brother's advice to the back of her mind. That's not right. She had never taken Big Brother's advice to heart. Regardless of whether she saw Captain Xia or not, she threw it to the back of her mind. Therefore, when Big Brother mentioned going to her room or Captain Xia's room, her heart was so tense that she almost lost her breath. Heaving a sigh of relief, Yi Qian collapsed into Xia Jinyuan's arms. She, who had just survived a disaster, let out a long sigh. Xia Jinyuan, who was hugging her tightly, laughed and said, "Wrong. It's not that I can predict the future. This is called knowing yourself, and your enemy is the key to victory. Based on my understanding of the devil, his face would turn black even if I held your hand. If he knew that we were staying in a hotel, he would definitely not let me off easily. In order to prevent trouble before it happens, I had to prepare in advance. As expected, they inadvertently made things difficult for him. Fortunately, I was prepared for battle and was waiting for brother-in-law to attack at any time." As Xia Jinyuan laughed, the naughty look appeared on his face again. Who was he, Xia Jinyuan? When he was young and ignorant, he was a famous little tyrant in Siju City. He was young and full of ideas. He didn't cause big trouble, but he kept causing small troubles. He was able to make old Xia, who was the commander of an army group, so angry that he almost had a heart attack. However, because he couldn't find a way to punish him, he kept an eye on him every day and still couldn't find a big problem with him. This kind of small matter didn't require any intelligence. Could be done easily. Small matter. He didn't expect to receive a look of admiration from his little fox. What a surprise! Colonel Xia, who gave her a hard kiss on the cheek, raised his eyebrows and said proudly, "Admire your husband? Isn't it powerful?" And, hubby. She lifted her foot and her heel stepped on the tip of his shoe. Xia Jinyuan was caught off guard and felt the pain. His hands that were holding her loosened. Yi Jian, who was stepping on him, took the opportunity to get out of his embrace. After a few steps, she winked playfully and snorted, "Did you take advantage of me with your mouth again? Husband? Are we married? Have you registered your marriage? You didn't even propose. I can propose to you on one knee now, but there's no way to get a marriage certificate. I haven't even submitted an application, and your school won't allow me to submit such an application. How about I propose first?" Adept at playing along, Lieutenant Colonel Xia straightened his attire, looking as if he was about to propose immediately. Yi Qian, the one who had spoken earlier, was flustered. He stuttered, You don't. I don't want an insincere proposal." With that, he turned around and fled faster than a rabbit. Fortunately, she had the room card for room 1601. Otherwise, she would have to come back to get it. Xia Jinyuan looked at the fleeing figure and laughed happily. He was in a great mood. Li Jinyan, who had finished washing up in 5 minutes, knocked on the door to room 1608. Xia Jinyuan, who had only taken 3 minutes to shower, was wearing the casual clothes that old madam had prepared for him. He wiped his hair as he opened the door. Yi Qian wasn't there. Li Jinyan, who had come in and sat down, thought for a moment and said coldly, "You know that Uncle Chen has already left, right?" Chapter 4184. When Li Jinyan spoke, Xia Jinyuan realized that this wasn't a normal conversation, but a targeted conversation about Uncle Chen. Could it be that he had some news? As soon as the thought flashed through his mind, Xia Jinyuan immediately denied it. Li Jinyan might know about Uncle Chen's death, but as a Navy officer, he couldn't know about the Army's military mission unless the two armies cooperated. Xia Jinyuan's expression instantly turned cold when he heard the topic. He said, "I only found out less than 48 hours ago when Yi Qian told me personally. He was sniped to death. The other party was also a world-class sniper. If we want to find out, we can first make a list of the snipers in each country who accepted the assassination mission." After a slight pause, he added, Yi Qian didn't think about understanding these snipers because of her lack of experience. "I plan to." His cold gaze met Li Jinyan's equally cold expression. Xia Jinyuan's voice became a bit tense. "I plan to apply to the military to send her to the Werrui Hell training camp to study during the summer. She wants to personally avenge Uncle Chen, so she must come into contact with more world-class snipers. Uncle Chen was a world-class sniper from the early 1970s to the early 1980s in the previous world, but nearly 20 years have passed since then. Although Yi Qian was trained by him, she must further her studies if she wants to improve. The level of sniping techniques 20 years ago and the level of sniping techniques 20 years later are constantly changing with each passing day. Sniping techniques are also changing with each passing day. If you want to make a breakthrough, you have to stand in a broader world and learn from it. The Werrui Hell training camp was different from the Werrui Hell training camp. The Werrui Hell training camp was a legal representative sent by the military of each country. The Werrui Hell training camp was different. It gathered high-risk people from all over the world. Among them, there were legal and illegal identities, and the illegal identities accounted for the most. In the early 1970s, the United States shocked the world with a serial murder case. The murderer was said to have come from the Werrui Hell training camp. The murderer was still at large and had not been arrested. There were rumors that the murderer returned to Werrui's Hell training camp and became a training instructor. Later, He was killed by a special forces soldier who infiltrated the training camp during a training session. In the 1980s, the Hell training camp re-established a new rule. Any high-risk person who entered the camp was not allowed to kill each other. Once found, even if the murderer had left the camp, he would be hunted down. Someone had broken this rule and died in a car accident in less than half a year. After that, there were no more killings in the training camp. The reason Xia Jinyuan suggested that Yi Qian go to such a scary place was because almost half of the current snipers on the sniper list were from Wei Rui's Hell training camp. If he wanted to find out who killed Uncle Chen as soon as possible, entering the training camp was a good choice. Although Wei Rui's Hell training camp was an illegal gray area, there were many soldiers trained there. Xia Jinyuan was one of them, and so was Demon King Li. The two of them trained for half a year, and when they returned, they had shed a few layers of skin. Therefore, Demon King Li, who left 3 months earlier than Xia Jinyuan, came back to take on the important task of forming a Trimarine Special Forces team. Xia Jinyuan, who came back half a year later, parachuted into the Snowfield Brigade and became the captain of the team. Li Jinyan had experienced all kinds of unimaginable cruel training in Wei Rui's Hell training camp. Hearing this, his usually calm breathing quickened, and he subconsciously said in a deep voice, "I don't agree." Chapter 4185. It was hell. As a male soldier, he had been in there for half a year. In the first month, his mind and body had suffered unprecedented damage. It was not an exaggeration to say that his soul had been reconstructed. There was only coldness and darkness. Even if you stood under the sun, your heart would still be cold. Those who made it through all graduated successfully. Those who didn't went crazy, became disabled, and committed suicide. She won't give up on finding Uncle Chen's murderer. Demon King, if you want to fight back, you have to be strong. Yi Qian needs to break through her bottleneck. The summer vacation is only 2 months long. With her perseverance, she can survive even a few more months. Demon King, the opponent she will face is not ordinary. I believe you, like me, don't want to hear about her misfortune one day. I don't want to. That's why I have to be ruthless. This was Xia Jinyuan. When he was ruthless to his girlfriend, Yi Qian, it made others tremble in fear. Others did not understand Xia Jinyuan's painstaking efforts. They did not know what kind of struggle Xia Jinyuan went through every time he made a decision. Others did not understand. As a soldier, Li Jinyan understood. They were a group of people who were closest to death. If they did not have enough strength, death's side would have fallen long ago. They all knew that the enemy they were facing was very powerful. If they wanted to defeat a powerful enemy, they had to be stronger than the enemy to come back alive. Uncle Chen's murderer was not an ordinary murderer. How did he know that Uncle Chen had been killed? It was probably because he had received a document a few days ago that called for increased coastal patrols. Once suspicious people were found at sea, regardless of whether they were real or not, they had to be controlled immediately. He had asked the Navy commander why such a document had suddenly been issued. He had only learned about it from the Navy commander. However, when he heard Uncle Chen's real name, Chen Dongfeng, he did not realize that it was Uncle Chen who had raised his sister, Yi Qian. He only felt that it was a little familiar, as if he had heard it somewhere before. When he returned to the dormitory, he suddenly saw the group photo placed in front of his desk. When he saw his sister smiling like a flower in the photo, he suddenly woke up. Chen Dongfeng was none other than Uncle Chen, the principal Chen that her younger sister had always been thinking about. She even said that she wanted to bring Uncle Chen to the capital for a visit. She even said that when Uncle Chen truly retired in the future, she might as well bring him to the capital to live. Both her uncle and grandfather had mentioned that they would like to invite Uncle Chen to visit their home, but due to time constraints, they were unable to do so. Who would have thought that it would become a lifelong regret? If it wasn't for this document, he wouldn't have known that his sister had gone through such a heart-wrenching calamity. The room fell silent until the doorbell rang, breaking the heavy atmosphere. Xia Jinyuan got up to open the door for Yi Qian. Li Jinyan pursed his lips and said, "We can't make the decision for her. I also don't want her to go to that kind of place." He didn't want his sister to experience inhumane treatment in a place that could drive people crazy. Xia Jinyuan paused as he walked to open the door. He seemed to want to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. He pursed his thin lips and strode to open the door for Yi Qian. Yi Qian had already finished washing up. She immediately put on the short sleeves and shorts that were used as pajamas in the military academy. Li Jinyan saw at a glance that her fair and tender legs were bruised in several places. It was the same for her arms. At first glance, he could see that there weren't many areas of undamaged skin. These were the injuries from the 3 days of outdoor survival training, as well as the injuries from the previous training. After resting for 2 days from the 4th to the 6th, her injuries were much better. Chapter 4186. But for Yi Qian and the others, their skin would not be in good condition all year round. In Su Wen's words, other than their breasts, there was not a single part of their bodies that was in good condition. Li Jinyan saw the bruises on Yi Qian's calves and arms, and the already cold atmosphere became even colder. It was so cold that Yi Qian panicked. She thought that her brother had discovered something. "Don't think too much." Xia Jinyuan chuckled softly. "Why are you all so timid? Something else is making Big Bro feel bad." That's good, that's good." As soon as Yi Qian heard that it was not about the two of them sleeping together, the caution on her face disappeared. She walked over and said to Li Jinyan, "Brother, why are you in a bad mood? Did you talk to him just now? Can you talk to me about it?" Li Jinyan glanced at the guy sitting next to his sister, then looked at Yi Qian. The cold atmosphere became warmer. "You don't want to sleep? You really came over to chat with us?" "I slept too much, so I wanted to chat." "What did you guys talk about just now? The atmosphere is a little off." "You're not talking about me, are you? Did I make the 2 captains angry?" Yi Qian said with a smile. She only wanted to ease the gloomy atmosphere, but she ended up touching the ice. The atmosphere that had just been eased instantly became tense again. She saw the coldness in her brother's eyes, and it made her heart beat wildly. "No way. You're really talking about me. I haven't had any problems recently." Yi Qian tried to explain herself. Facing the captains that she had trained so hard, even if one was her relative and the other was her boyfriend, she still maintained a proper attitude. She did not speak casually just because of their relationship. A general was a general, and a soldier was a soldier. Since they were talking about serious matters, she had to act like a soldier. Her expression became serious. Xia Jinyuan held her hands that were on her knees and intertwined his fingers. He said softly, "There are no problems." "Very good. The devil and I have different opinions, so we can't come to an agreement." "Q King, I don't want to talk about this anymore," Li Jinyan said coldly. "I don't agree." Xia Jinyuan's gaze also turned cold. "It's not a matter of whether you and I agree or not. It's just that we're forced by the situation, and it's not up to us to make a decision. In the end, it's up to her. I'm just suggesting, I won't force her. After analyzing the pros and cons, the choice is in her hands." You have a great influence on my sister. My words may not be effective, but your words will definitely be effective. Since you brought it up, she knows that you must have thought it through carefully, otherwise you wouldn't have brought it up. You said that the choice was in my sister's hands, but in reality, from the moment you spoke, my sister had already made her choice. Xia Jinyuan's words were extremely incisive, as if they had dissected the essence of the matter. His handsome face was so cold that it was as if it was covered with a thin layer of ice. Under the ice, there was a bottomless abyss. No one knew what he was thinking. Sensing the tension, Yi Qian looked at the two of them and pursed her lip. I'm the person you're talking about, right? As the person involved, do I have the right to know? The two of you have said so much, but I'm the only one who doesn't know anything. Shouldn't the two of you tell me what's going on first? Yi Qian's voice was a little cold. They were talking among themselves, and she could listen without interrupting. But now that they were talking about her and there was tension, she had the right to know. Li Jinyan could tell that his sister was a little angry, and he immediately regretted it. He took a deep breath and calmed himself down before saying, "We were just talking about Uncle Chen, and he brought up a suggestion that I don't agree with." Chapter 4187. Principal Chen was a pain that Yi Qian could not bear to touch. Even though a few months had passed, his heart was still bleeding. Hearing this, Yi Qian's cold expression darkened a little. "Say it, I'm listening. Don't argue, I have my own judgment." Whoever made the suggestion would naturally have to explain it to Yi Qian. Xia Jinyuan looked at his brother-in-law, whose face was as cold as ice, and sighed in his heart as he slowly explained his suggestion to Yi Qian. He was her boyfriend, and as her boyfriend, how could he be willing to let his girlfriend suffer in a place where there was no warmth at all? As long as both of them lost their identities today, then if anyone dared to suggest that Little Fox go to Werui's Hell training camp, he would be the first to stand up and beat the crap out of that person. Even if it was only 2 months there, each day felt like a year. Every minute and every second was endured. But it was undeniable that as long as one endured it, their soul would be tempered, and they would be able to remain calm when faced with extremely challenging missions. Just like him, he had been in hiding for almost a year and a half. Even the cunning cobra did not know who shot him until he died. In a place where even the sun can't warm you up, as long as you step into the training camp, all your rights will be taken away. You will no longer be you, you are just a code name. You will only be you when you walk out of the training camp, and your code name will be changed to someone else. You can come into contact with top-notch weapons there. Other than internationally banned weapons, you can come into contact with anything that flies in the sky, swims in the sea, and runs on land. Currently, half of the visible snipers are from Werui's Hell training camp. There are also snipers who do not show up at all, but can kill when they make a move. They are like ghosts that serve their country. They carry out the highest level of missions. Sniper training is different from our training, but I don't know exactly how it is different. Only by going there can we find out what is different about the sniper's base. And I just told the Demon King that the person who killed Uncle Chen must be a world-class sniper. If we want to find the murderer as soon as possible, we might gain something by coming into contact with those top-notch snipers. More importantly, ignoring Li Jinyan's darkening face, Xia Jinyuan stared at his girl with dark eyes. More importantly, your sniping skills will be greatly improved. Yi Qian, when you meet the murderer one day, I only want you to win. Why did he send her to such a cruel place? Because he didn't want to lose her. He would rather be cruel now than have him regret it in the future. Yi Qian, who had never heard of Wei Rui's Hell training camp, was so shocked that even after Xia Jinyuan finished speaking, she was still in a daze. Who would have thought that such a gray area existed? A group of highly dangerous people could actually gather together to train together. Then when they meet on the battlefield, who will emerge victorious? Just like that, Xia Jinyuan opened a new door for Yi Qian to peek into a dark corner of the world. He let her know that there was such a place that was obviously illegal but tacitly allowed to exist by various countries. Only then did she realize that the outside world was very wide, and there were too many things that she did not know about. I originally planned to wait until you graduated before mentioning Wei Rui's Hell training camp to you, but now it has been brought forward. If you have any ideas, you can tell us now. The Demon King and I are both here, so you can express your personal opinion. Xia Jinyuan added one last thing after he finished speaking. Li Jinyan said, "You can voice your thoughts and questions, but I don't recommend you make a decision immediately. There is still some time before summer vacation." Chapter 4188. Going to Wei Rui's hell training wasn't a trivial matter. Xia Jinyuan could understand Li Jinyan's worries. Xia Jinyuan stared at her quietly and said, "It's a cold place where you can lose your life at any time. The cruel and inhumane training ground is a battlefield. High-risk groups undergo high-risk training. Although the rules state that you can't kill each other, you can only accept your fate if you lose your life during training. Most importantly, if you lose your life during training, you won't even be awarded a third-class merit, let alone a posthumous title of martyr. You're just a number there. The devil is right. Don't make a decision immediately. You can also ask us more about the Wei Rui Hell Training Camp. We'll give you a detailed answer for your reference." Yi Qian lowered her eyes slightly. She didn't dare to look at her brother, Li Jinyan, because she already had an answer in her heart. Her fear made Li Jinyan's heart sink. It fell into a bottomless abyss, and his eyes were filled with sadness. "I've been through this dark training, so I know how cruel it is. It wasn't easy to find you. Grandpa and Uncle finally have happiness on their faces. I really don't want to break this hard-won happiness." Li Jinyan didn't sit upright anymore. He leaned against the back of the sofa with his head raised. His chiseled jaw was tense, and his neck was so tense that the veins under his skin might have popped out. "Yi Qian, you're already a Special Forces soldier on high-risk missions. If you go through such inhumane, cruel training, what if something happens? Grandpa is old. He only hopes that his granddaughter and grandson will be safe and sound. Grandpa has been through too much. He lost several children when he was young, and then he was wrongly imprisoned. Later, when Grandma passed away, although Grandpa didn't say anything, every incident was like gouging out Grandpa's heart. Sister, I'm just thinking about the possibility of something happening to you. My back is drenched in cold sweat. I can't imagine what would happen to Grandpa and Uncle if something really happened to you. I don't dare to think too deeply. I'm scared." Even if it was just his imagination, Li Jinyan was still afraid. How could he agree to let Yi Jian go to a place where she might not be able to return for training? He was afraid of even imagining it. Even if that place could greatly improve the abilities of a Special Forces soldier, he didn't want his sister to go there. He also knew how much influence Xia Jinyuan's words would have on his sister, so he did not vehemently object. In fact, he even asked his sister not to make a decision immediately and to consider it carefully. After hearing this, Xia Jinyuan pursed his lips into a straight line. Old Master Fu and his future father-in-law, these two elders were Little Fox's closest kin. They were her deepest concerns, and the bond of blood ties could indeed cause her to think about retreating. If the Little Fox wanted to leave now, he would acquiesce. But before she entered the Snowfield Brigade, he would have her undergo training. If it wasn't the Demon King training camp, then it would be the Hell training camp. And he preferred the Hell training camp. He, who had gone to the Hell training camp, was about to return after a year. When the time came, he could have a chat with Little Fox. Xia Jinyuan pursed his lips into a faint smile. He said to his lover, who had been silent for a long time, "Why aren't you saying anything? Are you still thinking about what you want to ask? Don't worry, take your time. I don't need your answer right now." Chapter 4189. This time, Yi Qian didn't immediately agree. She lowered her head and nodded. She wasn't thinking about whether to agree or not, but how to reassure her brother. She had her own judgment. Through Xia Jinyuan and Li Jinyan's introduction of the gray area, Werui's Hell training camp, she knew how dangerous that place was. It was so dangerous that every training could lead to death. However, these were not enough reasons for her not to go. She really, really wanted to go. Because there were world-class snipers training there. Because she could come into contact with more world-class snipers there. And if she trained there, she might become a world-class sniper one day. Now, she was still a long way from becoming a world-class sniper. In the past 2 years, she felt that she had reached a bottleneck in sniping. She felt that she hadn't made any progress for a long time. It felt like she hadn't grasped any new knowledge for a long time. Although it was dangerous, it still deeply attracted her. She wanted to go. She really wanted to go. Her silence made the 2 captains from the Special Forces unable to guess what she was thinking. There was nothing else they could do but wait quietly. Xia Jinyuan naturally wouldn't persuade Yi Qian to go because he was still considering whether to let his beloved girl further her studies. If she went, he couldn't bear it. If she didn't go, he was afraid of losing her. Between the two, the latter was more important. In the end, the choice was in her hands. Whether she went or not, it was up to her. Let me think about it. Brother, you're right. Grandpa is old and can't take stimulation. If I really go, I can't guarantee that I'll be safe. If something happens to me, Grandpa won't be able to accept it. It's the same for Dad. Dad has been looking for my mom for more than 20 years. My mom left me to accompany my dad. If something happens to me, I'm afraid that my dad will leave with us. Yi Qian's answer didn't make Li Jinyan feel at ease. She heard Xia Jinyuan say that half of the visible snipers came from Werui's Hell training camp. Her eyes flashed with a meteor. Even if it was only for a short time, he saw it clearly. She made a note of it and would go. Li Jinyan, who was resting his head on the back of the sofa, stiffened his neck. After a long time, he said, I can't stop you from going. Grandpa and Uncle who stayed in China can't stop you either. You're used to flying and there's good wind to help you. I know you want to go. Your eyes told me you want to go. Li Jinyan, who was not used to talking too much. He was a little tired and wanted to go back to his room. Li Jinyan sat up straight and calmly looked at his sister, who was starting to feel uneasy because of his words. The corners of his mouth twitched and he revealed a helpless, bitter smile. Make your own decision. If you go, tell me. I'll go home and hide it from Grandpa and Uncle. Before you come back, I will protect Grandpa and Uncle's happiness until you come back. Yi Qian choked. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I want to avenge Uncle Chen so badly. I can't let the murderer go unpunished. Uncle Chen shouldn't have left like this. They're too cruel. They're too cruel. I want to find the murderer. I want to live with Grandpa, Dad, and all of you. If I want to live, I have to work harder. I'm also afraid of death. I'm also afraid that I'll never see you again. So I'll try my best to live. I won't let anything happen to me. Brother, just trust me this once. You trained me. You should know that I can get through it. Chapter 4190. Yes, it's because I've trained you before. I know you can get through it, so I agreed. I'll take care of Grandpa and Uncle. Li Jinyan smiled bitterly and shook his head. His cold voice was full of helplessness. Actually, I can't take care of them much. Grandpa has always been taken care of by Uncle Fu, but now Grandpa has something to look forward to. He wants to see you and me return safely. Grandpa, who is used to waiting alone, and Uncle, who is used to researching in the base alone, their happiness is for you to come home safely. I just hope you remember that when you take revenge for Uncle Chen, don't forget that Grandpa and Uncle are still waiting for you to come home. I know. I'll always remember. I'll always remember. Brother, don't worry. I won't let Grandpa and Dad down, and I won't let you down either. Yi Qian's voice was choked with sobs, but she kept nodding and answering. She felt very guilty, but she had to persevere. I'll remember what you said today. I hope you'll remember it too. Li Jinyan stood up. He needed to be alone and didn't want to continue chatting for the time being. Just as Li Jinyan turned to leave, Xia Jinyuan, who had been quietly listening to the siblings' conversation, said in a deep voice, "Devil, before Uncle Chen left, he told Yi Qian not to seek revenge for him. Why did Uncle Chen say that?" Li Jinyan paused and stood with his back facing the two of them for a while. After a while, he clenched his fists and turned to look at Xia Jinyuan coldly. "Because it's very dangerous. With my sister's current strength, it's not enough for her to seek revenge for him." "That's right. That's why Yi Qian can only become stronger so that she can face unknown dangers. I know it's cruel, but compared to losing, I'd rather live a cruel life." "I know. Good night." Li Jinyan answered him and said to Yi Qian, "I'll send you to school tomorrow." Yi Qian only had time to say good night before he strode away. After the door closed, Xia Jinyuan hugged Yi Qian from behind and sighed. "I've offended brother-in-law. Sigh, I need to think of a way to make it up to him." "You can't. When you spoke just now, my brother probably wanted to kill you." Yi Jian caressed his handsome face. Her choked voice was filled with melancholy. "Brother did it for my own good. He knew it was dangerous there and was afraid that something would happen to me. That's why he wanted to stop me. But he also knew that if he really stopped me, he would regret it for the rest of his life. Between fear and regret, I chose fear. Fear was only half a year, but regret would last a lifetime, and there was no hope." Xia Jinyuan hugged Yi Qian's slender waist tightly from behind. He arched his body and rested his chin on her neck without saying a word. The two of them stood and hugged each other. The atmosphere in the room was so tranquil that they didn't want to disturb it. After some time, Xia Jinyuan's deep voice sounded a little strange. It sounded like a broken string, making one's heart feel heavy. "This path is too difficult, but I won't let go. I'll always hold on to you. No matter how hard or tiring it is, I won't let go." "Then don't let go. Just hold on to me tightly and tell me how to go from time to time." "Captain Xia, I've been through so much just to be by your side. If you let go, what should I do?" she said in a low voice, tugging at the strings in his heart. He trembled, bowed to her every word, and was moved. "I won't let go. Once I hold on to you, I'll hold on to you tightly for the rest of my life. I won't let go of your hand." He kissed her neck gently. A transparent drop of water quietly dripped onto her collar without Yi Qian noticing. It didn't even leave a mark. Chapter 4191. Who didn't want to live a peaceful life? Who didn't want to be together forever? Who wanted to get hurt? Who wanted to have an uncertain return date? No one wanted that. However, there were always people who had to do things, complete them, and carry them on their shoulders. These people were people dressed in olive green. Yi Qian, Xia Jinyuan, and Li Jinyan belonged to this category. Because they understood each other, they could understand each other. No matter how worried they would feel relieved when it was time to let go. After Xia Jinyuan sent Yi Qian back to room 1601 to rest, he sat quietly by the bed. After a long time, he took out his phone and sent a text message. It was already past 1 o'clock in the morning. After sending the text message, Xia Jinyuan put his phone under the quilt and lay down on the bed with his arms and legs spread out. He closed his eyes and his elegant and handsome face was slightly serious. Less than a minute after the text message was sent, the phone on the quilt vibrated. Xia Jinyuan didn't open his eyes. He reached his long hand under the quilt and felt the phone in his hand before opening his eyes to see who was calling. "Dad, why haven't you gone to bed yet? I received your text as soon as I got back to the villa complex." Commander-in-Chief Xia took off his military cap and put it on the coat rack. He motioned for the guard to pour him a glass of water and walked straight to the living room sofa to sit down. "Your decision was very sudden. Tell me the reason." Xia Jinyuan sat up and said in a low voice, "Dad, Why haven't you made any progress after arresting someone? Yi Qian didn't inform her because he thought he didn't get any useful information. It doesn't suit your style of doing things. If you didn't get any information, you would have informed her instead of not mentioning it at all. As a son, he knew his father well. What Yi Qian thought, Xia Jinyuan didn't think so. Although he said he didn't get any information, he had already planned to ask when he returned to the capital. Now, he came to ask in advance. Commander-in-Chief Xia took the glass of water handed to him by the guard. He raised his head and drank more than half of the glass in one go. He put down the glass and pondered for a while before saying calmly, "There is a problem, but we didn't get any useful information. Someone in the underworld is willing to pay for the Zhou family's life, no matter who it is. Now that we've found this person, the trail has been cut short." In other words, Xiao Ye's suspicions are not valid. The two cases are not the same group of people. He is still being held captive. As for when he will be released, I don't know. I didn't tell Xiao Yi because... Commander-in-Chief Xia paused slightly, sighed and said, "The military has always been protecting Principal Chen. Who would have thought that something would happen right under their noses?" Old 6. The military can't give Xiao Yi an explanation. I don't know how to communicate with Xiao Yi either. You're her boyfriend. You're the most suitable person to communicate with her and console her. The military would definitely catch the culprit. No matter what price they had to pay, they would bring the culprit back to the country. Tell little Yi not to worry about this. This was the promise that Commander-in-Chief Xia made to Yi Qian on behalf of the military. Xia Jinyuan murmured an "okay" and then asked about the text message he sent. "You can arrange my arrangements. If she wants to improve her sniping skills, she has to go to a more brutal place to receive training." "Is that the only reason?" Commander-in-Chief Xia asked. "No. Since the culprit who killed Uncle Chen is also a world-class sniper, Yi Qian has to improve her own ability if she wants to take revenge. That's the first reason. Second, half of the world-class snipers currently come from Wei Rui's Hell training camp. Since the culprit is also a world-class sniper, Yi Qian might be able to gain something after going there. Third, I don't want anything to happen to her." Chapter 4192. There was silence on the other end of the phone, and there was no reply for a long time. Xia Jinyuan, who had always been patient, waited quietly. This kind of decision could not be made in an instant. Tonight, he only told his father about his and Yi Qian's future plans. He did not expect to get his father's approval immediately. As expected, Commander-in-Chief Xia, who had been silent for a long time, said, "Even if Xiao Yi agrees, the military still needs to consider carefully before making a decision. It's not easy to train a female Special Forces soldier, especially since Xiao Yi is extremely talented. The military is still waiting for her to come out and give her important task. I can't give you an answer now." "I know. I just wanted to tell you that you can discuss it with Major General Yang and the other chief. Whether she can go or not is not up to us. It's mainly up to the military. It's late. You should rest early. Good night." "Good night." After ending the call, Commander-in-Chief Xia drank another mouthful of water. He placed his phone and cup on the coffee table and sat quietly alone. His expression was a little dignified, and no one knew what he was thinking. At 5 o'clock the next morning, Xia Jinyuan, Yi Qian, and Li Jinyan opened their rooms almost at the same time. They were all wearing the same short-sleeved shirt and shorts. The three of them looked at each other. Yi Qian took the lead and said, "Good morning." Only then did Li Jinyan and Xia Jinyuan say, "Good morning." The three of them, who were used to waking up early, went into the elevator together, finished a 10-kilometer morning run together, and returned to the hotel, drenched in sweat. It was 7 o'clock when they sat down at the hotel's restaurant for breakfast. There were not many guests in the restaurant. The three of them each took their own breakfast, chose a table in the corner, and sat down to eat together. The three of them did not talk during the meal. They maintained the discipline of the military until the meal was over. In public, the three of them avoided talking about the military and only talked about their daily lives. After chatting for a while, they realized that the three of them did not have anything good to talk about. They spent all their time in the military. What were the topics of their daily lives? Nothing. Yi Qian simply talked about some of the interesting things she encountered during her training and the difficulties she encountered in her studies. She was not good at chatting, and as they chatted, the three of them fell silent again. They looked at each other. In the end, even Li Jinyan, who didn't like to smile, couldn't help but rub his forehead and say, "Let's talk in the room. It's not convenient here." He and Xia Jinyuan were used to talking about the military, so it was not suitable for them to talk about military matters in the restaurant. As for life, there was nothing to talk about. "Let's go back to the room. I was so pissed off by the two of you last night that I forgot to mention something." When Yi Qian heard this, he immediately apologized. "There is no right or wrong, only choice. You return to school at 2 o'clock. You have to go to the hospital later, right? Let's go to the hospital together after we're done talking." Li Jinyan stood up and walked in front of them. His little sister was all grown up. She even had to make eye contact with Xia Jinyuan from time to time during breakfast. As her brother, he had become a third wheel. He might as well go back to his room and talk about serious matters. Li Jinyan knew that he had become a third wheel between the two of them, but he never thought of leaving. Xia Jinyuan hadn't seen Yi Qian in a long time, and he hadn't seen Yi Qian in a long time. To leave the two of them alone? Sorry, he couldn't do it. Xia Jinyuan, who was a few steps behind, quickly reached out and grabbed Yi Qian's hand. He whispered teasingly, "When Big Brother finds a girlfriend in the future, I plan to follow him." Chapter 4193. Narrow-minded. Yi Qian knew why the man next to him said that. It was because Xia Jinyuan had been with her all this time, so Xia Jinyuan didn't have the chance to be alone with her. "It's not easy for my brother to find a girlfriend. If you dare to be like this, I'll ignore you," she said with a smile, especially when she glanced at him from the corner of her eyes. That glance was like rippling water, and it made Xia Jinyuan's heart itch. He wanted to kiss her. Comrade Xia Jinyuan, who had always been a man of action, looked around. There were more customers in the restaurant now, and there were a few gazes that fell on them. They didn't fall on him and Li Jinyan, but all of them fell on his girlfriend. When the narrow-minded Xia Jinyuan saw this, he immediately changed his mind. He was about to kiss Yi Qian when no one was looking. Instead of secretly holding Yi Qian's hand, he openly put his arm around Yi Qian's shoulder. "What are you looking at? He's already taken. It's him." When he put his arm around Yi Qian, it made Yi Qian jump in fright. Yi Qian didn't struggle and only whispered, "Aren't you afraid that my brother will punish you?" "I'm not afraid. Brother-in-law knows about our relationship." Xia Jinyuan looked at his brother-in-law, who was walking in front of him, and deliberately slowed down his footsteps. He narrowed the distance between them from a few steps to 2 meters. He said, "Not only do I want to hug you, I want to kiss you." He was really kissing her. And he didn't kiss her on the face or forehead, but directly on the lip. The few gazes that fell on Yi Qian disappeared. The men in casual clothes retracted their gazes and no longer looked at the beautiful girl who made their eyes light up. He lowered his head and kissed her. Yi Qian widened his eyes, not because he was frightened by the kiss, but because his brother, who was walking in front of him, turned around. At this moment, his face was as gloomy as water, and he stared coldly at the back of Captain Xia's head. If sight was a bullet, Captain Xia's entire skull would have been blown to smithereens by Big Brother. Xia Jinyuan felt a chill run down his spine. He straightened up and continued to hold Yi Qian's shoulder. He looked back at his brother-in-law calmly and smiled elegantly. Li Jinyan narrowed his eyes, warning Xia Jinyuan not to push his luck. After receiving the warning, Xia Jinyuan hugged Yi Qian tightly and calmly walked over. Then, he smiled and said, "I couldn't help it. Big brother, when you find a girlfriend in the future, you'll definitely understand why I was so impulsive. My surname is Li and yours is Xia. I don't dare to be called Big Brother by you." As he spoke, Li Jinyan's gaze was like an iron nail. It went straight for Xia Jinyuan's hand, which was wrapped around Yi Qian's shoulder. It was so hard that Xia Jinyuan felt the back of his hand hurt a little. Yi Qian pursed her lips and smiled. She didn't mind being kissed by Captain Xia in a place where there were people around. Seeing his brother's gloomy face, Yi Qian smiled and said, "Brother, let's go. They're blocking the aisle of the restaurant." "Girls, outside." Big brother Li Jinyan was flustered. His sister didn't have any objections. What else could he say? No. He still had to say it. "Don't push it too far. Don't push it too far." After receiving his brother's reminder, Yi Qian smiled and said, "I definitely won't let him push it too far. If he dares to be unruly, isn't he still the big brother?" "Really? Aren't you afraid that I'll beat him up?" No. Stubborn. Li Jinyan couldn't do anything about Yi Qian. He smiled and glared at her before taking the initiative to walk in front of her. Chapter 4194. Li Jinyan, who had his biological mother's protection, had indeed spent a carefree time when he was young. After his mother passed away, old Madame Shaoli's claws were revealed. Without his mother's protection, he became like a weed. Old Madame Shaoli would pluck the tender leaves today and pinch them the next day. Less than half a year after his mother's death, Li Jinyan no longer had a smile on his face. Fortunately, he was smart. As a child, he could see the viciousness beneath old Madame Li's kind face. In addition, from time to time, he would suffer in front of Du Jiai and her siblings. Li Jinyan's temperament grew colder and he became more and more taciturn. It wasn't until his biological father married another stepmother that Li Jinyan basically shut himself in his room except when he would show up for meals. Later, when he was a boarding student in junior high school, Li Jinyan's temperament was cultivated. He was used to being indifferent and even cold-blooded. If it weren't for old Madame Fu, who was still alive, visiting from time to time, old Master Fu who often wrote letters, and Uncle Fu Yuxing and old Madame Fu who personally brought him back to the Fu family, Li Jinyan, who was used to being alone, probably wouldn't have even stepped into the Fu family's house. Li Jinyan, who lost his home when he was young, received all the love from the Fu family's elders. He gave all the warmth he had to the Fu family. Now, he had a younger sister, Yi Qian. Although he wasn't good at expressing himself, he used his own way to protect Yi Qian. He felt that his younger sister, Yi Qian, was still young and should be taken care of. He couldn't let Xia Jinyuan take advantage of her. He had always thought this way, but he couldn't resist Yi Qian's love. Seeing that she didn't resist Xia Jinyuan's intimacy, Li Jinyan didn't try to stop them. He couldn't be like the Queen Mother of Heaven and force the two of them apart. Appropriate intimacy was fine, but nothing else. Back in the room, Li Jinyan said to the two of them seriously, "Uncle and grandfather don't want you to get married and have children too early. The two of you have to know your limits when you're together." This sentence was to remind the two of them. She then turned to Xia Jinyuan and said, "You are 6 years older than my sister and you know more than her. I hope you can think for her and not affect her because of your momentary greed. You're experienced with the discipline of the military academy, so I won't say too much. I have no objection to the two of you being together, but if my sister gets hurt because of your momentary lust, Xia Jinyuan, even if I have to be the bad guy, I will stop you two from being together. A man who doesn't care about the big picture because of his greed for pleasure and doesn't think about the future is not worth entrusting your life to. At first, Yi Qian blushed, but slowly she suppressed her shyness and listened attentively. She knew that her brother said this for her sake. On the other hand, Xia Jinyuan listened even more attentively. He had to listen to his brother-in-law's words. His brother-in-law's face had already darkened when he secretly kissed Yi Qian. If he didn't listen now, he would definitely be kicked out of the room. He said, "I've waited for her for so many years. I won't ruin our lives because of one moment. You, old master, and Uncle Fu can rest assured about this. Grandfather has always trusted you. Uncle didn't say it, but since he didn't stop you from dating my sister, he and grandfather both think that you're worth entrusting your life to. Me? You've been up to too many tricks in front of me. I'll take a wait-and-see attitude for now." Li Jinyan glanced at Xia Jinyuan, who he thought was dishonest, and changed the topic. He didn't give Xia Jinyuan a chance to explain himself. Chapter 4195. Comrade Xia thought about it and decided not to explain. He suddenly understood why his brother-in-law's expression was so gloomy when he saw him being intimate with Little Fox. It was just like when Ho Zi and Xia Yue were dating. Every time he saw Ho Zi, who was still a hooligan at the time, holding Xia Yue's hand, he wanted to secretly take a stick and break Ho Zi's hand. Why did he have such thoughts? It was probably because he felt that Ho Zi was bullying Xia Yue. His brother-in-law's current state of mind was probably similar to his at the time. He wasn't against it, but he just didn't like it. Now, his brother-in-law also didn't like it. It didn't matter, he just had to get used to it. After listening to his brother-in-law's lecture, Comrade Xia nodded to show that he understood. However, he didn't let go of Yi Qian's hand. Li Jinyan, who was trying to change the topic, saw this. Although the corners of his mouth were still pressed tightly, he still endured it. The Li family didn't stop after Li Chuhai's death. Old Man Li has been investigating the cause of Li Chuhai's death. I know that Li Chuhai was Aunt's murderer, so I've been paying attention to the Li family's movements. At the end of last year, I returned to the Li family and found out that Old Man Li used his old connections to investigate Li Chuhai's death. You guys have to be careful. Don't let the Li family catch on to anything. Old Man Li knew that Li Chuhai had been killed, but he didn't know where or who killed him. Therefore, when he returned home at the end of last year, he didn't immediately tell Xia Jinyuan. Of course, at that time, he couldn't find Xia Jinyuan or Yi Qian. Yi Qian's pupils constricted when he didn't tell Old Man Li in advance. No one knew better than her who killed Li Chuhai because she was the one who killed her enemy. Then, has Old Master Li found anything yet? Yi Qian clenched his left hand and pretended to ask casually. I don't think he found anything. Li Chuhai's death is a military secret. Very few people know about it. Old Man Li probably couldn't find anything. Xia Jinyuan and Li Jinyan did not notice Yi Qian's strange behavior immediately. Xia Jinyuan said, I know that Li Chuhai escaped, but I don't know who killed him. When I was still in China, I once thought about killing Li Chuhai with Yi Qian, but considering that Li Chuhai might recognize us, I gave up on the idea. Why would Old Master Li use his connections to investigate a criminal who deserves to be punished? Why? Could it be that he wants to avenge Li Chuhai? Yi Qian pursed his lips slightly. She and her comrades from the Snowfield Brigade carried out the mission to kill Li Chuhai. The person who killed Li Chuhai was none other than her. When they carried out the mission, Captain Xia was also overseas. Captain Xia, who did not participate in the mission, naturally did not know. The pigeons who carried out the mission with her could not have told Captain Xia about their mission since it was a military secret. Even if Captain Xia was the team leader, she could not tell. Li Jinyan said coldly, that's what he thought. Otherwise, he wouldn't have investigated. I now suspect that Old Manly knows that the military is investigating Li Chuhai because of Ant. If he continues to follow this lead, he will find out about Yi Qian sooner or later. When that time comes, it's not impossible that he will take his anger out on Yi Qian. Yi Qian, keep an eye on Shuku village. See if there are any strangers who have entered the village to inquire about Ant. Xia Jinyuan, please ask the commander-in-chief to check if anyone leaked the information. I'm more than 70% sure that Old Man Li already knows the cause of Li Chuhai's death. Chapter 4196. This news made Xia Jinyuan's eyes darken. Okay, I'll get the higher-ups to investigate immediately. But the net is too big, so we can't rule out the possibility that Old Man Li might have found out about it through other channels. The point now is not that Old Man Li knows the cause of Li Chuhai's death, but that he will find out about Yi Qian. Once he finds some clues, he will investigate further and won't give up easily. If he finds out about Yi Qian's identity, given his methods, Yi Qian will be in danger. Xia Jinyuan's eyes were gloomy. Old Master Li was like a wolf that had turned into a demon. He was ruthless and cunning. That was why Xia Jinyuan could retreat safely without hurting himself when he was trapped in the storm all those years. If he found out about Yi Qian, the situation would become very serious. The most worrying thing was that if he couldn't find out who killed Li Chuhai, he would take revenge on Little Fox in a fit of rage. This wasn't impossible. Yi Qian pursed her lips and said to Xia Jinyuan, "Captain Xia, can you report this to the commander-in-chief immediately?" If the military knew about this, they would have taken precautions against Old Man Li. Okay! Xia Jinyuan immediately got to work. The commander-in-chief was his father, so it was much easier to contact him. It was not break time now, so Xia Jinyuan directly called the clerk's office and transferred to Commander-in-Chief Xia's office through the landline. Xia Jinyuan and Li Jinyan were worried that Old Man Li would find out about Yi Qian because of Li Chuhai's death. Not long after Li Chuhai's death, Old Master Fu was worried that the Li family would find out about Li Chuhai's death and find out about his daughter-in-law's only granddaughter, so he looked for Master Xia and asked Family Xia to step in to protect his granddaughter. Master Xia obviously took it to heart. Xiao Yi was Family Xia's granddaughter-in-law. If Li Jingrong dared to deal with his granddaughter-in-law, the first person who wouldn't let him off was his Family Xia. Therefore, Li Jinyan and Xia Jinyuan were worried that Commander-in-Chief Xia had already left traces behind more than a year ago, so that Old Man Li wouldn't be able to find out that the martyr Hong Mei had an only daughter. Commander-in-Chief Xia, who was reviewing the documents, said calmly, "I've already made preparations more than a year ago. The Li family has also been investigating and hasn't stopped until now. It seems like Old Man Li won't stop until he dies." Xia Jinyuan sneered and asked, "He has someone in his hands. Once he finds out who killed Li Chuhai, Dad, you have to protect that hero well." Commander-in-Chief Xia put down his pen and said something that made Xia Jinyuan look up at Yi Qian in shock. Yi Qian immediately guessed why Xia Jinyuan was looking at him in shock. He smiled gently. This was her and Pigeon's mission. Captain Xia, who didn't participate, had no right to know. The hero who saved the people is not someone else. He's right beside you right now. It's good that you know. In the future, if Li Jinyan finds out anything, you can all be on guard together. These were Commander-in-Chief Xia's exact words. As soon as the call ended, Xia Jinyuan raised his hand and rubbed Yi Jian's head while she was smiling. "You're so bold when I'm not around. Did you really go to take revenge personally?" Yi Jian smiled at him and said. It was Li Jinyan's turn to be shocked. Yi Qian pushed away the big hand that was still rubbing her head and complained with a smile, "Why do you and Big Brother like to rub my head? Stop it. If you continue, I'll become bald." Chapter 4197. With Commander-in-Chief Xia's advance warning, Yi Qian did not have many misgivings. However, she did not reveal the entire plan in detail, only saying that she and her comrades had acted together at sea and succeeded in their revenge. It was also a coincidence. At that time, when you suddenly left, I thought you were going to eliminate the power behind Li Chuhai. I was very worried and my mental state was normal. It just so happened that my dad was going to Jin City for a meeting with representatives from the various military academies, so Commander-in-Chief Xia arranged for me to go with my dad. At this point, Yi Qian's beautiful eyes showed a hint of hostility. That night, I went to the port with a few cadets from the various military academies to check on the ship's crew. Who knew that we would so coincidentally discover the problem? Perhaps everything is predestined. In the end, they found out that the freighter was just a ship that carried goods along the way. The goods they were carrying that night were none other than Li Chuhai. Yi Qian smiled. As the corners of her mouth curved, her eyes darkened. Old man Li was anxious to save his son, so he arranged for Li Chuhai to leave the country on a cargo ship. Who would have thought that the martyr's daughter who was killed by Li Chuhai would also be on the ship? I waited until Li Chuhai arrived, and in the end, I personally killed him when he was still trying to escape. I thought that it would take a long time to kill Li Chuhai, just like waiting for Yi Jifan to fall. Who knew that it would be done in one night? The process was so fast that I almost thought that the Li Chuhai I killed was another substitute. Fortunately, it wasn't. Li Chuhai is Li Chuhai. He had been on the run for so long, thinking that the news had passed and that no one knew what he had done in the past. He had even forgotten about the martyr he had killed, Hong Mei. It wasn't until I appeared and told him that I was Hong Mei's daughter that Li Chuhai finally remembered that he had done such a small thing. He thought that it was a small matter. As long as he was comfortable and did not suffer any grievances, destroying a person or a family was a small matter to make him happy. That night, Yi Qian saw the look in Li Chuhai's eyes. Even before his death, he did not believe that he had done anything wrong. There was not a trace of repentance or an apologetic expression on his face. Yi Qian's anger burned like a raging fire in her chest. She wanted to kill him. She had to kill him. If such a person got off the boat alive tonight, many innocent families would be killed by him as long as he went out. Yi Qian opened fire and did not give Li Chuhai a chance to get off the boat alive. Such a person did not deserve to be human. Even if he went to hell, he would be tortured. Yi Qian's voice softened the harshness of that night. She did not mention the dangers of the battle, only her own feelings at the time. After more than a year, Yi Qian was still angry when she brought it up again. Because Li Chuhai disregarded human life and still felt that he was right to be arrogant, he was angry. Xia Jinyuan held her hand and gently rubbed the back of her hand with his thumb. He listened quietly with Li Jinyan, allowing her to pour out her remaining anger and unwillingness. In the days when he was not around, his little fox's life was hanging by a thread again and again. Time and time again, it relied on its own strength to pull through. His little fox, the girl that he loved deeply, had grown up to be independent. Now, she had relied on her own strength to face the trials and tribulations. She had used her unyielding spirit to pass through the trials and tribulations, welcoming rainbow after rainbow. Good job, female soldier. Chapter 4198. Xia Jinyuan felt extremely proud. The girl he had been waiting for had finally grown up. He could finally rest assured and let her face more difficulties alone. He was also relieved when she went to Wei Rui's Hell training camp. Li Jinyan, who was clenching his fists, felt as if a ferocious beast was roaring in his chest, crashing into his heart. It hurt so much that it felt like it had shattered into a ball. It hurt so much that even his face turned exceptionally pale. His sister had suffered so much, and it was all because of his uncle, Li Chuhai. He had harmed his uncle's family and caused his sister to suffer so much. She had almost not been able to return to the Fu family alive. At this moment, Li Jinyan hated the fact that he shared the same surname with Li Chuhai and was even related by blood. When he was young, he had struggled and wanted to leave the Li family, which looked magnificent on the outside but was so rotten on the inside that his personality was distorted. He had struggled and suffered until his uncle told him that a person's life was far more exciting than his current life. As long as the door of the prison was not welded shut, he would have plenty of opportunities to leave. Later, he had finally left and cut off his ties with the Li family bit by bit. He did not even consider himself a member of the Li family and had only taken on a surname. He did not consider himself a member of the Li family and had never admitted that he was a member of the Li family. His surname just happened to be Li. Today, he was even more convinced that the Li family had nothing to do with him, Li Jinyan. Therefore, Li Jinyan waited for Yi Qian to finish speaking before he said in a cold voice, "As long as the Li family is not eliminated, the threat will always be there. The best way is to destroy the Li family before they find out the truth." Yi Qian, who needed to adjust his emotions after he finished talking about the past, suddenly heard his elder brother's harsh words. His pupils constricted and he stared intently at him before he blurted out, "Brother, don't get involved." Her elder brother was a member of the Li family and she did not want to put him in a difficult position. "I promised Grandpa and Uncle that I would protect you." Li Jinyan took a deep breath. His cold eyes contained the fear of implicating his only sister. He said in a deep voice, "If you have scruples because my surname is Li, you can rest assured that I only have the surname Li. I have nothing to do with the Li family." But Yi Qian still wanted to say something, but Xia Jinyuan squeezed his hand and whispered, "Big brother has his own plans. You just have to wait and see." Xia Jinyuan was not at all surprised by Li Jinyan's words. His brother-in-law did not have any kinship with the Li family, especially when he knew that old man Li could very well endanger Little Fox. He treated Little Fox like a treasure, so how could he possibly side with the Li family? Naturally, he would stand on the Little Fox's side and think of a way to topple the Li family. It won't be easy to topple the Li family. Otherwise, Old Man Li would have been toppled a few years ago. In recent years, Old Man Li knows that he has made a lot of enemies in the past, so he has been living in seclusion and rarely shows himself. As for what he did in the past, he has already wiped away all traces of it. It will be very difficult to find anything that can be used against Old Man Li. Because family Xia did not have a good relationship with the Du family, Xia Jinyuan would occasionally pay attention to the Li family. He had also asked Master Xia about the Li family and knew that Old Man Li was ruthless, cunning, and scheming. He believed that his brother-in-law wanted to topple the Li family, but it was very difficult. Chapter 4199. Li Jinyan knew that it would not be easy to topple the Li family. However, if he did not do anything, he was afraid that Li Chuhai would cause his uncle and aunt to be separated forever. In the end, his so-called grandfather would cause trouble for Yi Qian. There will be a chance. There will be a chance. He lowered his eyes to hide the haze in his eyes. He would definitely find the Li family's fatal weakness. He would definitely find it. Yi Qian was very worried. She did not want her brother to bear the blame because of her. Her brother did not admit that he was related to the Li family, but what about the people outside? They would not think so. "Brother, don't be too pessimistic. Look, it has been more than a year and Old Man Li has not found out anything about me. It is obvious that Old Man Li does not know about my existence." As soon as Yi Qian finished speaking, Li Jinyan shook his head and said, "It's not that he does not know. He mentioned the Fu family, which means that he must know why Li Chuhai was investigated. He must have found out about the relationship between uncle and aunt. Otherwise, he would not have mentioned the Fu family." You grew up in Shuku village. Everyone knows Ant and you. Once his men go to Shuku village, your identity will be exposed. That's not necessarily true. My father has been looking for my mother for more than 20 years. He still has my mother's photo. It will be difficult for old Manly to find me. So what if he knows about my mother and father's relationship? My mother used a pseudonym and did not leave her real name. The army also erased all of my mother's information. I think it will be difficult for old Manly to find out now. Yi Qian analyzed calmly and Xia Jinyuan nodded slightly. That's right. Li Chuhai was very ruthless. He did not leave them any way out. In the end, it would not be easy for old Manly to find any clues from Li Chuhai's erasure. Just like what Little Fox said, his future father-in-law had been looking for his mother-in-law for more than 20 years without any results. He did not believe that old Manly would be able to find out about Yi Qian so quickly. Your analysis is not wrong. Brother's analysis is also reasonable. I will ask the family to keep a close eye on him. If we find anything strange, we will immediately take action. The army will also protect Yi Qian well. With the army's ability, they can definitely do this. Xia Jinyuan looked at the time. It was already past 10 o'clock. It was time to check out and rush to the hospital. The three of them conversed for a while, and each of them had a rough idea of what to do. Before the topic ended, Yi Jian added, "Even if old Master Li really finds out about me, you don't have to worry too much. My social circle is very small. Old Master Li won't have a chance to do anything to me." In short, she was not afraid at all. Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. If they really came, they would just have to face them. She did not believe that she could not survive. The optimistic and confident Yi Qian made Li Jinyan smile faintly. His sister had always been so positive and optimistic. If she was not optimistic, she would not have been able to survive under the pressure of Yi Jifan's family. After so many ups and downs, he should believe that his sister would face them with tenacity. In the end, victory would still belong to her. He should believe in his sister like Xia Jinyuan did. The conversation went from a heavy start to a relaxed end. The optimistic Yi Qian arrived at the hospital with the two handsome men. The three of them stood in the elevator like the most beautiful scenery, attracting the attention of the people coming in. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.